2022. If everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for guiding us and looking after our city and county. We ask you to continue to aid us in doing the best job for our community. We ask you to look after our citizens and our first responders and our troops. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Ives, will you call the roll for the city, please?
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Dial? Mr. Coverline?
Here.
Chief Butler?
Okay, at this time I'll turn it over to Mr. Hollingsworth for the county.
I guess I should open the meeting for the county. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Oh, you want a roll call? Okay. All right, roll call. Clerk? Thought she was going to do that blind.
Mr. Williams?
Here. We can't hear you.
Mr. Thorne?
Here.
Mr. Hollingsworth?
Here.
Mr. Witt?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Roll call's complete. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Anybody? All right,
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? Agenda's approved. First, we're going to start with discussion and possible action with Bell Street Sewer Upgrade Memorandum of Understanding. I think it's only fair for us to have staff from either the county or city or both to give a little, go ahead, Jake.
Yes, you missed where person wished to address the city council.
Say it again. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry, this is a little different when we do it. Okay. Is there anyone that wants to address the city council? Looks like Sylvester Warren. Mr. Warren?
Chairman, Mayor, council members, and Commissioner Sylvester Warren, 930 Northeast Joe Coney Terrace. I guess me at the podium is mainly to speak to the city council. We've had this discussion when we were in the city chambers. I think it was last council meeting. And I just want the council hopefully to stick to their guns that we talked about as citizens and as council members, that we make no major decisions here tonight. I do think it's appropriate that we come as a city body, hear out the discussions that the county want to have with us. We got to keep in mind, if this was football, we're missing our quarterback. We don't have a city manager. And I don't think any major decision needs to be made on the city behalf without us having the city manager in place. And I would hope and think that the county would respect that and understand where we would be coming from as a city. And I hope that we can have some meaningful discussion, get some things together on the list that makes sense. But when it comes to utilities and some big ticket items and some big action items, that we table that, consider it, get our manager on board, come back, put the managers and attorneys together and try to work out those details when somebody's more experienced at the helm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Is there anyone else? Or do they have to be on this list? Okay, is there anyone else who wants to address? All right. We're going to start with number one, discussion and action on Bell Street Sewer Grade Memorandum of Understanding. If we need staff to comment on this before we start with it, if somebody from the city wants to and somebody from the county wants to, or however y'all want to do it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Paul and I talked about this when we were putting the agenda together. This is relating to the two projects that the county is doing related to the Bell Road, totaling $1.5 million at some point. And I guess I should back up. There's a series of projects, and Paul can answer how much they are and what they are, related to the Bell Road and getting that capacity down to either Kicklighter or St. Margaret's. Of those 5 or 6 projects, 2 of them the county committed to undergoing and budgeted $1.5 million for. We would like to have the contract with the county to basically administer those projects. And so we would need an interlocal agreement between the county and the city for you to administer that project for us.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
And,
Go ahead.
Paul, where's Paul?
Get all the way to the other end.
See something?
Paul, for the record, could you give us a scope of that project that we agreed to help the county help the city by funding the 1.5, and the city will come up with an X amount of dollars also to contribute to that project? Am I correct?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Council. Ms. Bell's here also. If I say anything that's out of the way, she can correct me. You are correct. There's like 6 phases to this project from Bell Street all the way down to St. Margaret's to enhance the flow from that Bell Street corridor there. And basically, the 6 phases include everything from putting in, upgrading lift stations, putting in a new lift station around Young Park, putting in new force mains, and of that nature to increase the volume that we can get up there from the Bell Street area. And in the discussions that we had, the first 2 phases basically come from Bell Street down, that basically mostly encompass things in the county. And the conversations that me and David had, we thought it would be a good idea if the city administered through the construction and engineering to make everything streamlined, so everything works a little bit more in unison with what we were trying to accomplish.
Now, on that project, have the city discussed the funding of their part of it yet?
What we were wanting to do, we already have an agreement with Jones Ed and Ms. Bell here to do the engineering work. What we wanted to do was try to get the engineering work done first, and then we were going to submit for the grant fundings, because most people understand you can have a shovel-ready project, especially with DEP. It's a lot easier to get the grant than it is if you just go in and you still have to do the engineering and everything else. So we've, and actually I had a conversation with several of the councilmen this week about bringing it back before council to have those funded so we can go ahead and get that project started. It was my intent if we could go ahead and get the money from the county. However, we want to start that project with a memorandum of understanding. That way, when we started that project, we could get the funding to do the engineering. And then while that was taking place, once we get the engineering done, then we can apply for the grant, and hopefully everything would run in unison on that. Because hopefully at the end of this project, Ms. Bell can correct me, when all phases are complete, we were looking at a little over 500,000 gallons of additional capacity. The first phase or 2 would make us around 130. If we did like half of it, around 270, something along those lines. So the full build out, the full capacity would be a little over 500,000 gallons of extra capacity up there on Bell Street.
On the, now what is the timeline? What we're talking about from start with them doing their work, engineering and all, until we apply for the grant, the timeline about approximately when that project will start and be completed?
Well, we originally had an aggressive timeline, if Jamie can remember, I think it was around 3 years, 2 to 3 years, depending from start to finish. And that's getting all the surveying done, all the geotechnical work, all the engineering for the new lift station, the bypass that we were wanting to do. Because what the ultimate goal is, originally what we wanted to do was put in some valving on the line from the lift station so we can send it to Kicklighter or to St. Margaret's, but preferably to send it to Kicklighter. That takes off flow from St. Margaret's, so we'd have extra flow that would come from the east side into St. Margaret's, so we'd be able to accompany more development on the east side of town.
But, or it take probably 2 to 3 years, are we not saying that we can't put any more development on Bell Road at this time until this is done?
No, sir. Right now, we have capacity now to put 2 or 3 small developments up there. Small businesses like a Warner, we could put 2 or 3 more Warners up there with no problem. We have capacity. This is just to enhance if you get a really big industry or something to come up there.
And why this is important is that, I'm working with all the landowners on the Bell Road corridor. And, for us to be able to create, to enlarge the duty in that area for commercial, we have to show DEP that we have the ability to provide utility. Now, we have, that one project that's going, that we are waiting for them to announce any day now. They're doing the preliminary work on the land to make sure that they can get the most use of the land from the wetlands in the area. And we want to extend Bell Road straight across to 41, and don't go down by the old cat house with the curve is right there.
Yes, sir.
Close that, and go straight through. But in order to be able to get the duty change, we have to show that we can provide utilities in that area. So by doing this, we can accomplish that. Am I what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
hearing?
Yes, sir.
What is your water availability on Bell Road?
Well, right now, since we actually have that system looped right now, the only thing we're really limited on is our consumptive use right now, which is basically, based on our daily average flow, is probably around 700,000 to 800,000 gallons. I believe that's correct, Mike. So basically, that's the only thing that limits us up there.
And that leads me to my next question. With only 700,000 gallons available right now with your consumptive use permit, why would you try to send water to the industrial park when you're already limited on capacity, and we've got future development up there where you would use your water source up there on Bell Road?
Well, definitely, we don't want to use up all the consumption that we have. That's why we're doing an alternative water study and different studies right now to see if we can get that raised up. And Jones Evans, we're in the process of that right now. I think we actually have a meeting next week to discuss some of the stuff that we have been turning into Swanee River to try to get that raised.
So have you started engineering on the 20-inch water main going to the intermodal park?
We have a scope and everything. Jones Edmond has that in hand. As far as a contract, we just need to find the funding. If it's both boards' decision, that's the direction that we want to go. It's already in place to get started. We just need direction from both boards to decide what we want to do. But Jones Edmond already did some of the preliminary stuff based on some of the studies and stuff we'd already done in that area. So basically right now, we're just waiting for a directive, what we need to do, if we need to pursue it.
And that is under item number 9 on today's agenda.
Yes, it is on there.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead, Mr.
So sticking with item number 1, I do understand why we want to be consistent with the construction and have that done by the same entity. I assume Ms. Bell is going to do our 2 phases or 3 phases we've agreed to in addition to y'all's. Is this item on the agenda because you need direction from both the county and the city boards to draft this memorandum of understanding?
That is correct. We would need the attorneys to get together and draft the memorandum of understanding. Our thought was having one engineer do the whole project would make it seamless versus having one engineer do the preliminary design, then bringing another engineer who might then try and redesign the whole project, which would then cost us a lot more money.
I think as long as both our interests are protected, we'll do the engineering, but we won't commit to the funding of the project until their end comes through too. As long as nothing leaves the county hanging, I think, and I feel confident our counselor can manage that. As long as that happens, I have no problem with it. And I'll make the motion to direct county staff to work with the city on this memorandum of understanding.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is this something the city and the county just wants to vote on?
Mr. Chairman, I think you would take our vote first, and then you would let them take theirs.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Comment. Comment.
Oh, you have some comments? Go ahead.
Paul, are you aware of what we are trying to do on towards I-10 on 441.
Yes, sir, I am.
We're trying to secure you some easement to go under 41 and put that big water line on that, on the east side of that road there, 441, for future development down at the station where they want to do down there. They want to tear out that interchange and redo that. Is there going to be any, if we can help the city get the right of way to extend that water line north on the east side of 441, would that won't be complicated to do once you have the right of way, right?
No, sir, and one thing I would like to bring up, when we did, the city of Lake City is now receiving effluent from the Baker County Rest Area out there at the Waffle House, and one of the conditions to accept it from them is I had them go ahead and we already have water, sewer, and gas bored under I-10 there where the Huddle House and Target is. It was my intention or the council, based on the direction, was like we had talked before, to loop it all the way around, come back up on 41. That way you have a true loop system for that whole area there that will support any development in the future, plus that interchange over there.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. This was the upgrade memorandum of understanding. We spoke about some other things.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we would approve engaging in a memo of understanding with the county on the Bell Road Corridor project.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion by the city council? Ms. Ox, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
All right. Moving along. We had some discussion about the Bell Street extension. We're going to stay in, Mr. Williams,
So
do you have?
basically, Mr. Chair, this is exactly what Commissioner Williams was talking about.
Yeah, I think we've covered about 3 things at one time, didn't we?
Mr. Chair, I have some comments on that.
Okay.
So one of the discussions we've been having, and one of the asks we're looking to make to our elected representatives, if our council approves it, is to look into an alternative water system north of town in the Upper Swanee, as well as a sewer system. So in the near future, we're going to be making an ask for our elected representatives. We would like for your support in that ask, because to grow that part properly, 500 gallons is good in sewer, but we're going to need a lot more than that to get where we need to be. So just to give you some updates on that.
Can somebody interpret to me what he said?
Mr. Williams?
I didn't understand what he said. Somebody tell me what he said.
He said, Mr. Williams, he said that they want to looking for some alternative methods for water and with water management about, in the Swanee River Basin. That they want to see if there's some other alternatives they can use also to provide more water for the Bell Road extension.
Mr. Chairman, so we're going to be looking for another water use permit in a different area. So we're going to be looking for it in the Upper Swanee, since we're having a lot of difficulty where we're at currently, as well as what we're working on with Jamie as well.
Did you get that, Ron?
No, I get it.
They're going up, they said they're looking up for some more ways to provide water in the Upper Swanee, and different ways to provide water, because they don't want to run out. They don't want to have a problem with that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any more discussion, Mr. Sampson?
David, if I'm not mistaken, I guess this is advisable to you and Paul both, but it makes sense to seek out other cups, if you want to say in Upper Swanee, because get us out of this company basin, Santa Fe, whatever we call it, correct?
That is correct. Right now,
We're all agreeing to that, is that right, Paul?
Yes, sir, that is correct, because in the Bell Street corridor, based on its readiness already with the water, sewer, and gas that's already available, and the discussion we've had with some of the landowners up and around that area, the potential for development around that area is pretty great. And a lot of it is to the point right now where it's almost shovel ready for a few small industries to come in there. So basically what we want to do is try to get out ahead of it, try to secure some kind of a permit in some way or fashion to be able to supply the future need of any water or sewer projects that may come up in that area before they become feasible.
And David, Swanee River has expressed to us time and again that this would definitely be a better avenue or, to go into the Swanee Basin, correct?
You're not in the MFLs that are in the lower Swanee or in the Ichitutney,
Right.
or in the Santa Fe. Right now, the upper Swanee does not have those restrictions. They will possibly one day, but right now they don't. We know of water users up there. We know there's flooding up there. There's a lot more chances of recharge up there. It just puts you in a whole different basin that you're gonna have a little bit more flexibility in. That goes back to what Commissioner Williams was saying about the property owners around the I-10 corridor wanting to develop, and what Mr. Dial was saying about trying to loop that around between the two interchanges at I-10. That would then, you could develop a strategic utility plan for the entire I-10 corridor that would allow you then to adjust your DUDA on that whole area and then rezone it to whatever you would need to support whatever uses you would like out in that area.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Murphy, one of the things that we have done, and David sort of touched on it in his comment, recharge. We have a prime area where we have a lot of flooding during the floods, where water just does what it should do when it mitigates, when it replenishes when it replenishes the swamplands, and then it goes back into Swan and goes all the way into the Gulf of Mexico where it doesn't do anybody any good, in a sense of speaking. And we have been in discussions about some recharge areas in the Upper Swanee. Swanee River Water Management at this time do have some grants to address recharge, but DEP it sort of kind of got them held back. So there got to be a meeting of the mind between the Swanee River Water Management District and DEP on recharge up in the Upper Swanee. And once that happens, this board is committed to put water back into the aquifer that we take out, and that would be a good area on several locations up on the Upper Swanee to be able to do that. Right now, my Falling Creek suck, we call it the suck, taking in billions of gallons a year from Lake City to Falling Creek, and it's a great recharge for that area and for the aquifer, nevertheless. But we can use more of that because we are still not capturing all the water that we can capture by having a big recharge areas in that Upper Swanee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Witt.
it sounds like both city and county have interest in the aquifer up north and increasing cups and things like that, and I think that's important. It's important why we have meetings like this to discuss it, because we don't want to be stepping on each other's toes, competing with each other for ventures. The county is in the utility business. The county will have its first joint utility meeting next week in Fort White, and but I do think we need to come up with a master plan for how and why why and who's going to provide utilities in the area sooner rather than later, because, and we're going to talk about the industrial park later, but, we have full intentions of providing water to the industrial park. It sounds like the city's doing that too. It sounds like we have a lot of competing interests, and I want to get away from that. I don't want to come off like, and sometimes it does, the county doesn't want to work with the city. I'm fully committed to working with the city where it makes sense, but I am also committed to the citizens of the county and our taxpayers who rely on us to do this, and it's our responsibility to do it, not the city's. So, the I-10 corridor, Bell Road, they already have some infrastructure down there. It makes perfect sense to continue that. But, we need to, when it comes to future cups and recharge, we need to all get on the same page and figure out what we're doing, what both governments are doing. And I want to stop the competing projects, because it's a waste of time. I mean, if we're going to do it on our own, let's do it on our own. If we're going to partner with them to do it, let's do it. Let's identify through a master study or whatever what the best way to do that is there. Because I've heard in our meetings about recharge and the aquifer up north, and now I'm hearing the city's got the same goals. So, I think it would behoove us all to be on the same page. And that may not happen at this meeting tonight, but those discussions are going to have to be made in the very near future.
I agree, Commissioner Witt. I don't want to be in competition with the city, but at the same time, we have to service our area where we want economic development. And without water and sewer, we cannot do our economic development. And, at this time, we've been told that they can't provide water and sewer for these areas. And sitting in the utility meeting, the last couple of meetings we've had, it sounds to me like some of them think we're in a race to who can get water there the fastest. So I agree with you. We need to get a map and figure out who's going to service what areas and who benefits from servicing those areas the best with the infrastructure they have already. So if the city doesn't want to entertain the idea of a joint utility, then I think we need to probably go ahead and get some kind of study done to see where we would be running water and sewer and where it makes sense for them to run water and sewer.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Carl.
So we have been working on a master plan since we started the utility committee. And I don't know if Jamie Bell wants to give us an update, but you guys helped fund it. And we should be getting that master plan. Do you have an answer?
We're looking at the next 6 months.
Within 6 months. So we've started the master plan to see where for economic development, and you guys came along with us to help fund it. So when we get that, it's going to give us some ideas. I was confused because our staff's been working together with the county staff on these items. So I didn't know you commissioners didn't know about it. We've been talking to staff about water use permits up there. We've been talking, when we get to item 9, about a lot of things that I was surprised when we got to the last utility meeting that seemed like surprises. So I think it's good we're having this meeting so we can have these discussions. But the city's definitely in the utility business. And I think all the meetings we've been to that we've been talking about, we want to provide the utilities that we can, where it makes sense. And if there's places you want to go it alone, then that's something we can work on as well. And when we get to item 9, I'm sure we'll have a lot more discussion about that. But Bell Road is city lines. And I think we can work together there, but I mean, we're ready right now, shovel ready. So all we're trying to do is improve instead of having a limited amount to increase the supply.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, Jamie, could you give us collectively a group update on the master plan? Because apparently.
Yeah, and I'd like to know, it's a master plan that includes some of the things we've talked to them about, I'm sure, to make the best for the city and the best for the county also. That's what I'm really worried about is that you're looking at what is the best way for us to work with the city to do one thing and one thing for us to do ourselves. Is that kind of the gist of what you have going on?
Yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Jamie Bell, engineer with Jones Edmonds. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, good evening. Just to give you a quick kind of summary of where we're at on the master plan. So we're calling it the Lake City Utility Master Plan. It's covering water, wastewater, and natural gas utilities. And a large onus of the cooperation between the county and the city was specifically to include the mega industrial park. The original plan, when it was just the city's utility master plan, was to only cover the city's existing utility area and to look at possible expansion outside of that. So basically covering the current demand and where they expect that demand to grow in the next 20 years. obviously there's been a lot of back and forth over who's going to service the industrial park. And so in the interest of cooperation between both the city and the county has graciously offered to co-fund the study so that we could incorporate that and make sure both of your interests were covered. So we started on the master plan, and then Paul and I discussed with a lot of the shuffling of city managers, we had missed an important wet weather window for collecting wastewater data, because the intent of collecting data during the rainy season is to figure out how much water is infiltrating into the sewers, which therefore affects the capacity of your wastewater plants. It's too much extra water. And so we missed the wet weather season just with the way the scheduling of the approval of the contracts went. And so that plus kind of the flux in City Hall, we actually put a pause on the project for a few months, but we're back up and running, and we have completed the first major steps, which I actually literally emailed the city about this morning, which is evaluating the current system overall for all 3 utilities and doing what we call a data gap analysis. We're figuring out what are we missing in order to complete our review of the city system. We also completed the initial field data collection plans for, again, all 3 utilities. And so we're looking at meeting with the city hopefully next week, pending all of the directors' availability to review the gaps in the data, and then next to review the field data collection plans. After that, we go into 2 months of field data collection, which during that time we build the model, which is basically a computer-generated system of looking at all your pipes and pumps and all that good stuff to see if you can meet your current demand. And then we project out where's the population in 20 years, not only by numbers of people and businesses, but also where will they be located and how will you service them. We put that into the model as well, and it shows us where kind of your problem areas will be. And then we propose capital improvement projects to either upgrade existing system inadequacies or to put in new projects to meet those new service areas. So at this point, we're about 25% into the master plan because of some of those scheduling delays. However, the next 2 phases are going to overlap, and so we're going to make up for that lost time. And like I said, we're on track to have the entire study completed in about 6 months, because once we get that field data and that model built, the rest happens really, really quickly. So kind of the long story short is that the intent is to look primarily at the city's existing utilities and where the projected demand is in 20 years, and the city and the county are cooperating on that so that we can incorporate additional areas that are not part of the city's current intended service area, like the North Florida Mega Industrial Park. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, it sounds like that this study is more focused on the city utility and how that can expand. And I mean, things have changed, and that's good information to have and know, but things have changed since this started. The county is now in its own utility business. And, you know, that's why I still think outside this master study, we need to decide who's going to provide utilities where based on the infrastructure the city has. But if we have to put infrastructure in, new infrastructure in, we're in the utility business and we're going to do that. And we're going to run it.
Mr. Williams?
Paul is in a tough situation. He's between a rock and a hard place. There is a need for utilities, and if the city don't provide the money for him to lay pipes in the ground, his hands are tied. And then if the county gonna come in and spend $15–20 million on utilities, I want some say-so in it. It's just that simple. I'm not gonna ask my fellow commissioners to write a check for $20 million to run utilities and we don't have any say-so. I've been sitting here 40 years, and it's the same darn thing over and over and over and over every year. We lose businesses because we can't provide utilities. We just can't do it. I'm letting down the people all over this county, all them hundreds of students that graduate every year from school, from high school, and we are not providing the wholesome job atmosphere for them because we can't land businesses. And we can't land businesses because we can't provide the utilities. That's been like that ever since Tom Fool wanted to come here in the 70s. We lost business. They come here, we got to try to go to Tallahassee to get a grant to put the pipes in the line. We got to do that. We can no longer do that anymore. At the mega site today, I know of 3 projects that we lost. We lost Project Bell because we couldn't provide water for them. We just lost one a month and a half ago, 1,700 employees that had the backing from the governor's office. We couldn't provide natural gas for them. That got to stop.
Mr. Chairman, that's not the case.
Wait a minute.
That's not the case.
Wait, I got the floor right now. I respect you when you're talking, and
Okay.
I wish you would respect me when I'm speaking.
Go ahead.
Okay. I can fault Paul. Paul worked for the city. It's the city's responsibility to put money, appropriate money for him to do his job. It's our responsibility to go out and seek companies to locate in Columbia County so that we can provide those necessary, essential things that people need, and that's a job. You give a person a job, he progresses in the community. I'm just tired of it. We talked about the water in the sewer line 10 years ago, and ain't nothing been done about it. Nothing. We don't know how much water is leaking into the sewer system. We just don't know. But if we're going to be a partner, we'll be a partner, but we want some say-so. Just like the commission is saying, we want some say-so. We put our skin in the game, we want to be able to say something about the game. Working together is fine. Anything that we can do to work together is great, but we haven't been able to do that for the last 40 years, I know. We just haven't done it. The decision that was made put the county in the utility business. We didn't want it. We didn't want to go to utility business. We begged the administration to put water eligible. And I know I'm the same old tune over and over, but it is what it is. When they had oxygen in the water down there, we begged for the city to put water down there. They refused to do it. That started us in the utility business. We reached out to Fort White. Fort White reached out to us about their water system. At the last minute, the city come in and say, well, we want to get in the game and run water to Fort White. $7-8 million. They didn't have the money to do it with. You don't blame Paul and his crew. You blame the people that got the money and to appropriate the money for it. He only doing his job of what he can work with. It's about like trying to, his position there, city, is like trying to dip the Soda Lake dry with a sifter. It'll never happen unless you put the money, skin in the game to do it. The future of Columbia County is providing jobs for Columbia County and her citizens. And that's where I felt that I have fell short of because of all the things I've done, I got an X in that box for not doing it because we don't have the utilities to do what we need to do. Where we can work together, I'm hand in hand. But where we got to go on our own, then we go on our own. I mean, it's just that simple. Our responsibility is to look after our citizens and give them job opportunities. Now I'm through, Mr. Sampson.
Mr. Sampson?
Mr. Chairman. So the city has consistently said and will continue to say, we are the gas provider and willing to provide the gas, but we can't get phony numbers and try to come up with the gas use to spend $15 million without a customer. I think every meeting I've been to, and I've been to a bunch of them, I've heard Mr. Brown get up and say, all we have to do is have a plan. Who's your user? Let's provide it. The city will continue to say that because the city is going to be the gas provider in this county as much as we can and need to be. And we need to make sure gas is there because I've got a lot invested in this. I've got 5 kids that need a job. So I want to see the economic development in the right place. But to say that it's the city's fault that we've lost those jobs within the last month for lack of gas, I don't see that as being the case. That sounds a little bit revisionist. you know, we talk about 40 years ago, but I could just go back a little short time to 2006 when the city pulled out its utility to make a regional utility. And I'm sure there's arguments on both sides as to why that didn't work. But after 3 years, the city had to take it back in. Now, I'm sure the county side will be, and probably rightly so to some degree, the city didn't want to play ball and the county didn't want to play ball. But I say, let's get rid of the past. Let's move forward together. Let's put the utilities where they need to be. That's part of the master plan with Jamie. Where is the growth going to be? And without that master plan, it's shooting in the wind. Yeah, the industrial park's important. Bell Road's important. 47's important. 90 West is important. We need to be ready at all of these locations for growth. And I think that's going to be the city's stance. We're ready to grow. Now, to Mr. Witt's point, if we need to figure out an area where you don't want us to be, we can work something out on that. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's possible.
Mr. Simpson, I don't see it as an area where we don't want you to be. I think I'm taking responsibility for this because when I got elected, the mantra was the city's going to be the countywide utility provider. And I'm not here to blame the city. I'm just saying that the situation in the county has changed to where we've got a lot of interest and a lot of growth that is far away from the city limits. And I see that, especially in my district, it's my responsibility to do that. It's not the city's responsibility. And I love to have your cooperation and where it makes sense and we can work together and use your lines and whatever to make it work. But I'm also saying that the county has taken this on as our responsibility too, and we're gonna provide it where in the unincorporated areas of the county where it's our responsibility to do it. We're gonna make it happen, and if it's easy to make it happen with you, I'm with you. But if it makes more sense to go it alone, much like the cup at the industrial park we got, it makes more sense to go it alone. And that's all I'm saying. It's not. I'm not here to pass blame because, frankly, the county's to blame too because we didn't see this a long time ago and plan for it. Well, now you've got commissioners in here who want to plan for it and want to correct it. We have the grants and the money and the want to do it, and we're going to take it on. And it's not we're moving without you. I want you to be a part of whatever makes sense for you guys to be a part of. I would love to have y'all come on in a regional joint utility and we'd solve all this mess. But if that's not going to happen, we'll work together where we got to work together. But there are going to be areas where it makes more sense for the county just to do it, and that's all I'm saying.
And Mr. Witt, I agree with you 100%. And I think what Jamie just presented, simply, she hit the nail on the head. She's gonna, their company's going to be identifying the areas of growth, and that's when we come together collectively as a city and a county. And, you know, and I agree with Mr. Sampson. We can't worry about there's nobody on this board today that can do a dang thing about what's happened in the past. You know, we can all sit here and talk about different agreements and stuff that maybe the city made and the county made on their own. But just what Paul said, and I've sat in a bunch of utilities since the day I come to the office, and Steve and Chapter, you know, utilities can be provided. But it's just like Ron said, here we are having to go down there and find the grant and everything. So it's a new day. I think we've got new, fresh ideas. It's my understanding the city's utilities, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't your utilities, the city expanding to 54% of your, or 50% of your utilities are in the county?
The vast majority of them.
Vast majority at this point. So it's time to where we as a city, and I guess the simple question is, and I said publicly I'd ask this question, when it comes time to be combined in services, is the council, is the city council interested in a combined effort where we can, or are we not? At this point, you know, we gotta have an agreement tonight that, as I said before, councilmen and commissioners, we got to leave this room tonight saying that when we can be a combined service, are y'all interested, are we interested? Just that simple.
Commissioner Murphy, what you said about the past is true, but we can do something about the future of Columbia County.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm here for tonight, talking about the future of Columbia County. And the future of Columbia County, the way I see it, is a regional utility. And my question to each council member would be, is that something that y'all would be open to? And if you're not open to it, how can you make an educated decision about it if you don't even look at it and see what it would look like?
Mr. Dow, would you like to answer that?
I have a comment on that. So,
Somebody have a comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Todd.
so, yes, I think we heard at the utility committee meeting, interested in how GRUs run. And I could see something like that. GRU is a city-owned utility with an advisory board that reports to the city council. I could see that. The city could be the regional utility. Now, as far as working together in interlocal agreements or whatever we want to call it, I think that could happen. I think we could work with separate agreements in different places. Could that lead to more cooperation down the road? Absolutely. I think to say immediately we were all for, giving up, not necessarily giving up, but getting rid of a part of the city that the city's had forever. I mean, there's a lot of cost at play there. I mean, we have what I would estimate to be $500 million utility. So for partnership in that, it costs to be an equal partner. But why don't we work together on the fringes where we need to work together, have an agreement there that's written? I think because that's a lot of the problems in the past, thinking about the past, is there was nothing in writing. It was just a lot of chatter. So let's work where we can work together, put it in writing, and then we have clear direction where everybody wants to be. Could that lead to a unified utility down the road? Anything could be on the table. It's just, let's start first working together on some projects.
And I want to say something. I agree with Mr. Sampson. We've had in the past, and I've heard it, we've got, yeah, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do this, and y'all do that. We have to put everything we do in writing. It's only fair for the city, it's only fair for us. We can't back out, they can't back out. We make sure that everything is clear as a bell. And that, I don't think that's ever happened between the city and the county. I think it's always said, yeah, we'll do the water, or we'll do this, and then it just kind of went the way of whatever. I don't know what happened because I wasn't here. So we have to have agreements in writing so that everybody knows what the other is doing, and nobody says that one didn't perform and one did. I think that's very important. I agree with Mr. Sampson on that. But anyhow, go ahead, Mr. Hill.
Well, like I say, I'm not a member of the utility committee on the city side. But sitting here listening at everybody speak tonight, I think that the city and the county wants to work together. And like Mr. Sampson said, if we have to start on some projects, see where that takes us. We need to start somewhere. Well, we're going to work together, we're going to work together. Like I say, that's done got old. We need to start somewhere on working to get this utilities issues straightened out. Like I say, the city is in the utility business, gas business. So again, I'm not, don't want to keep repeating myself, but we need to start somewhere. And that's all I have.
We need to put.
What would be your recommendation where we start?
We need to put pen to paper somewhere.
I have a recommendation for where to start. The mega industrial park, Paul's been working with David. Y'all have a water use permit. Staff's been working on a possibility to pump that from our wells to save you the cost of development and to get it to you for cost plus 10, your whole 2 million gallons. And then it will be treated, because what you don't have is a potable water permit, just raw. And that's something I didn't know. I mean, they've been working on this for several months now. I was surprised when we got to the last meeting that some of you guys hadn't heard about it from staff before. But that's a good place to start, because we're really close to being able to run lines out there. When you talk about a project like Project Wave, we're ready to commit today to say we have the utilities in place right now for that project. The problem we're going to run into is as we get bigger projects. Part of thinking about this water in the Upper Swanee is it's going to allow more water use in the industrial park, because if we can shift use there, then we've got that 4 million gallons down there that we could shift that way as well. So there's a lot of possibility to work together. I think if we started in the mega industrial park, it might make the most sense.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
My grandma always said, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And it's not, my comments is not not one city councilman, but a history of what happened over the years. And if you don't clean up, if you don't have a understanding of where you came from, you don't know where you're going. Now, there have been some projects that the city and county work together on. But the Bell Road is a good example. Target. is a good example. Target would not be here today if it wasn't a cooperation between the city and the county on providing utilities to Target. The same thing with Warner. Great work relationship. But what it frustrates me when my constituents come to me from Voss Road down Baffin Norris where Washington Street come in at the railroad track, that every time it rains they can't flush the toilets. I've been begging for sewer out there for the last 25 years. They can't use the toilets. In there behind Ken's Barbecue on 100. They cannot use the toilets when the rain comes. It smells worse than the dump do. With sewer all over the top of the ground. And I'll beg, Dale Williams, where's Dale Williams? Dale Williams. When we asked DOT to put 47 on their 5-year work plan. We went to Jack Slutbill, am I right? Wasn't it Jack Slutbill the city manager then? Joe Combs. Who? Joe Combs, city manager. Say, the county have asked for 47 to be 4-lane. We need to talk about utilities down that corridor. Joe Combs said, we don't have the money. We'll loan you the money to do it, but it just makes sense that you put all the infrastructure in the ground while they're doing the construction. Rejected it. The county have tried to work together in the past with utilities. That would have been the right time to do what needed to be done during that process. You guys wasn't here, but that's history. Eugene was here at that time when Joe Combs was the city manager. So I don't want anybody to think that the county have not tried to work with the city. We have tried, but we have got slapped in the face so many times until I'm scared. I got to ease my face out there on anything. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And it's not downing anybody. He's just calling an ace and a spade is what he's doing.
Mr.
Now,
Chairman.
we can find working opportunities, we do it. But for me, the mega site is off the book. I've been stumped on 3 businesses at the mega site on the county utilities, and I will not be stumped again on utilities going to the mega site.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of this agenda, the mega site is actually agenda item number 9, so there's going to be, I assume, much more discussion on that. I will say to your question, Mr. Sampson, we are working together on Bell Road. That, to me,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good start.
Yes, sir.
I guess I see it a little different. I think we are, and 47 is another case where we are working together too. I'm newer to this game, so I don't have all the history behind me, but I think we do work together. I think we are working together on several items. But in the interest of this meeting and this agenda, I know that the utility topic is going to keep coming up as we talk about the rest of these items. Can we possibly move on to number 3?
Yes, I want to say something. That's why I think it's so important. We got a 6-month study going. Is that right, Ms. Bell? Okay, and it does include counties, some of county's issues along with the city's issues. It's going to include that, or is it just going to be, I know we're helping fund it, but I just want to get a little more. So you're going to look into how we can work together with how your study's going to show some of that, how we could work together better for the betterment of the county plus the city at the same time.
Yes, sir. So I wouldn't use the word issues, but our big focus going into this was on primary areas of big economic development. And so that includes the North Florida Mega Industrial Park, which was, the primary topic we've been discussing, but it also includes the 4775 interchange as well as the Bell Road area and a little bit of the I-10 US 90 interchange. And so 3 out of 4 of those areas are outside of city limits, and that was a big push for why the county and the city did want to work together on that, because we see these big areas of development coming, they're outside of city limits, and we know that the county and the city have been discussing how to work together, and so we wanted to be really sure that we included those kind of heavy focus areas, high priority areas in the study. So those will be looked at, and they, again, the goal in the end is to have a list of projects to both improve existing systems to meet the current and projected demand, as well as to come up with projects to grow the system to meet the coming areas of demand. And so that will basically provide a list and these one-page project sheets that you can basically hand to a funding agency and say, hey, here's a summary, here's how much it costs, here are the benefits, please give me money.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I want to say something else, if nobody has a question, Ms. Bell. You know, that's why I think it's so important. We have never been in the utility business. We're going in the utility business. Right now, we don't have anybody on staff that really has ever been in the utility business, whereas the city has a bunch of people that's been in the utility business. So I think it's so imperative, and I think that hire, Mr. Kirby, and everybody else, all staff, the hire for our specialists in utilities is going to be one of the, like I said at the last meeting, the most important people that we'll ever hire, because they're going to have to work. I want them to work with the city, and I want them to, and I'm sure they can learn for us and we can learn for them, because they have been doing utilities for years. I just want to make sure that we have a spirit of working together, but there are times when it won't happen. It's just the way two governments work. It's just going to happen. But I think it's so important for us to have employees, to hire the right man, get the right people with them, and then we're on our way. Because right now, we don't have staff that handles utilities. So that is such an important hire, and I want to put that on as much speed as we can do it, you know, to get that going, so that when this study comes and we start doing our utility thing, let's make sure we do an educated, good, you know, a good thing for the county, because we don't want to spend taxpayer dollars when we don't have to. And I think the city feels the same way, you know.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
You people in the audience, I want you to hear this and understand, and maybe you'll really understand where the county is coming from. Mr. Murphy, you was on the board. You the only one who was on the board. But we signed an agreement with the state of Florida on millions of dollars that they gave us for the mega site. And the only thing that we had to do was generate so many jobs in a certain length of time. If we don't, we take your taxpayer dollars and pay the state back. And we cannot develop that mega site without water, sewer, and natural gas. And what we're getting that amended now for a little bit more time, aren't we?
Yes, we're getting it amended for another year.
For another year. We're behind now. That 1,700 jobs wouldn't have left but 300 jobs short of what we promised the state that we would create. That's why it's important. That's why my heart beat like it does. I don't want to take all your taxpayer dollars and pay back for something that we did not do with the money they gave us. All we want to do is create jobs for our citizens and do what we got to do. It ain't nothing about against the city. It's against a commitment that we made to the state of Florida. And I remember Mr. Murphy was the last one to agree to that concept of paying it back, because his word was, how we know we're going to generate 2,000 jobs. Am I right, Mr. Murphy?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? I was going to move on to 3. Discussion and possible action 47 I-75 regional pump station. I know we spoke a little bit about it.
Yes, as both boards remember, the city is doing a utility upgrade where they're adding pump stations, one near Ring Power. We have been faced with development in the I-75-47 corridor. We've met with the city staff, with our staff, with DOT, to talk about that development. And as we looked at it, Paul and I were discussing, and Paul can give more details. Right now, it is the responsibility of every developer to tie in to the city pump station. It might make more sense to have a regional pump station, so you only have to cross underneath the highway one time.
Mr. Kraus is correct. Originally, several years ago, when we started applying for the grants, it was the original intent back then to put basically a lift station at all four quadrants of what we call north, south, east, and west of the 47 I-75. The grants got scaled back basically to an environmental grant where we only ended up on the, basically what I would call the north side of 47. So what me and David had talked about, since there is a lot of interest in that now that it's going to have sewer, water, and gas in that interchange, there's a lot of interest in businesses and industry coming in that area. And to Mr. Kraus's point, when you start boring under DOT highways, it starts to get a little cumbersome with permitting and everything else. And it's a lot more cost effective if we have, like Mr. Kraus stated, that if we have like we call it a regional pump station, but basically it's be a master lift station on that side to where most of the businesses and everything could gravity or force main into that one lift station. You'd have one pipe under 47 that would connect into our system on the north side. That would be a lot less cost for the developers and the industry coming in over there having to put extra bores under the highway, which is definitely frowned upon from DOT. So it would be a lot more cost effective down the road, and it'll be an opportunity for the city and the county to work together on grant funding and appropriations to be able to make that come to happen. One thing I would like to relay to you also, Mr. Williams, Ms. Bell was about to send me a scope and a fee here shortly for that area of 100A that we had discussed before when you brought that to my attention. So the city has not overlooked that. We've been working on that, and like I said, just as soon as Ms. Bell gets me that scope and fee, we'll start looking at that area. I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Well,
Is there any
Paul,
discussion?
I appreciate that because years and years and years, nobody ever said anything to me about it. And I'm glad you took it on yourself to do that. And the residents in that area be pleased also.
Well, yes, sir. When you brought it to my attention, I made that a priority to make that happen because I was not aware that that area was that bad until you brought it to my attention. And then we started looking at it, and I started talking with staff that it has been an issue, and that's why I asked Ms. Bell to get me a scope and fee so we can get started on it.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Paul, on this regional, lift station that we speak of, I mean, you know, the previous, development, you know, that kind of on hold at this point. You know, they were gonna have theirs there. Are we still talking about, are y'all assuming that the lift station's gonna be on the north side of 75?
The lift station will be somewhere on the south side, either around where the Little Caesar is or on the other side of what I call the hayfield area over there.
Okay.
Basically, whatever the engineering comes up to say we're the best and lowest area, because I'd like to have it somewhere where it can attain a lot of gravity, which saves the businesses and developers a lot of money to be able to gravity to it and pump over to our side. So basically, wherever the engineers come back and say this is where everybody gets the best bang for their buck to put it, that's where it will
I see
go.
your point, just one time across
Yes.
47 definitely makes more sense.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That way, they don't have the incurred cost of having to engineer, getting back under 47, go through that permitting process and all that'll say that's basically a benefit for them.
Well, I know, you know, y'all met with a prospective developer here just a couple weeks ago, and, that's gonna be very enticing to future development for that very reason, because I'm sure, I wasn't there, but I'm sure the first word of discussion was cost, you know, then tying in impacts, everything else, so that makes a lot of sense. And, I'd be very interested in getting that report ASAP. It's dead in the middle of District 5, of course, corner of Robbie, but, you know, we all know that 47 couldn't go. And then, of course, we'll be tearing up the road one day if we go back north, because sewer line, we're on the road too early, but we'll get there. That's real good news.
Yes, sir. There'll be a lot of interest in that area, and there already are. And that's why me and Mr. Kraus have had several conversations on that. That's why we want to try to go ahead and move forward with that as soon as possible. That way we have something in place for the future development that comes in there.
So this lift station was not in the original scope of work?
No, sir. No, sir, this one was
And
not.
do you have an estimated cost for this lift station?
Right now, I wouldn't even want to throw out a cost. Off the top of my head, I would estimate somewhere between 500,000 to $1 million, depending on where it's located, the amount of piping and everything to take it to get back onto the north side. With the cost of everything right now, materials and all of that, it's be a lot more expensive than it used to be.
So in your and Mr. Kraus's discussions, what have y'all discussed about this lift station?
We've just discussed it as a conceptual plan,
Yes.
nothing specific.
Yeah.
So we're looking for board direction.
Mr. Chair, you're looking for board direction to allow city and county, or to allow the county to work with the city on pursuing a grant for this? Is that what you're looking for?
Basically, that's what we had talked about, whether or not, we can go, because a lot of times it's easier to get funding if it's a joint effort where the state sees that, the municipalities and the county are working together, and we just wanted some guidance. We think it would be it's a great economic benefit to that area, and it also shows that the county and city is trying to work together, and we thought it would be a great plan to work together and be able to secure funding a little better.
Well, I think with all the talk we've heard about what may come to that area, rumors about what is coming to that area, I don't have any doubt that that's an area we'll get a return on investment on, and I think it's a good idea to work together for this grant for the additional lift station. I don't have any qualms about making that motion and working with the city. I know Mr. Williams has got his hand up, but I'll offer the motion for discussion. If you need it by motion, do we need motion, or you just need direction?
I think they just need direction, but we can do a motion.
That was gonna be my question, Commissioner Witt. Do we need to authorize through motion for a work relationship with, the county attorney said yes, and I so move that we do so.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the city would authorize staff to work together with the county on the 4775 pump station in the procuring grants.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We do a roll call, or do y'all,
I think Ms. Sykes likes the roll call.
Ms. Snipes, you want to do a roll call?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Here's another opportunity for the city and the county to work together.
Yeah, that's the first one. Let's keep that going. All right, any more discussion on the regional pump station? I wouldn't think so. City-county dispatch. Mr. Kraus?
Yes, we've been working together with the 911 groups, the police department, the sheriff's office, both fire departments, the 911 center, on discussing the possibility of going back to a city-county dispatch. I'd like to recognize the fire chief from the city who's here, who can talk about any of the details of kind of where they're at, and we want to make sure, before we invest a lot of time and effort into it, it is something that is supported by both boards. Mr. Dial?
Mr. Chair.
Wait, Mr. Williams?
This isn't anything new. I think Mr. Murphy was on the board at the time. This had already been ratified by the city council before the city manager was there, before Mr. Holloway, what his name is? Hockenberger.
Yes,
Hockenberger came, and the new fire chief, the new police chief. It was already a done deal that there would be a combined dispatch between the city and county for all emergencies. And when the new city manager and the new fire chief, the new police chief came on board, it was pulled off. And then it came back on, and Paul and David and the police chief and the fire chief been discussing it, and we're just glad to see it back on the table again.
In addition, Chief Butler's here as well. He's had conversations with the sheriff, so they can answer any questions you might have.
And on that end, we've had a couple of meetings, as far as the technological side of it. We brought in IT staff from both the city and the county, to be able to be aware of any hiccups or anything, to make sure everything's compatible. and everything seems to be good on that end. So right now, as Mr. Kraus said, basically it comes down to the sheriff and the police chief coming together and working out the details of how they see it looking. Chief, do you have any comments you want to make, or I don't know if the sheriff's here or not?
Unfortunately, the sheriff is under the weather and was unable to attend.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening. I've been working with the sheriff, like was said. Sheriff Hunter and I have been able to get some things done because we find if we sit down and actually talk about it before we start reducing it to writing, tends to work out a lot better. We've already met with the fire chief from the county and the city. They're a lot closer because their services, they tend to work a lot closer together. They have an automatic aid agreement. Technology-wise, we're fortunate we're on the same computer-aided dispatch and records management systems. We've already been in touch with our vendor, Smart Cop, about what it would take because both law enforcement agencies have to maintain their own records. That's the RMS. That does not appear to be an issue. There is some technology, some infrastructure that has to be put in. This isn't the first time I've combined a dispatch center. My previous employment, I was a project manager for it, so I'm familiar with some of the pitfalls. And honestly, talking with county and the interim city manager, I don't see a reason why this isn't going to happen. I think it'll be a plus to the county and the city as far as EMS having police and fire dispatchers all in the same room. You call 911, there's no transfers. People can talk to each other in the event of an emergency. Everybody's on the same page as far as public safety. That includes EMS. And the city will maintain, my understanding is, the backup PSAP, which means there'll be a hot site ready to go in the event of a power failure or something that occurs at the county facility. All we need to do is move the personnel over and our 911 continues the way it's been going. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, Chief, chairing the 911 steering committee, of course, you know we've had many discussions. This is good news. And, you know, finally, and with your leadership that you've shown, I appreciate what you've done because I know you've done a lot behind the scenes, and as well as the sheriff also. This is on y'all's end of law enforcement. It's a multi-effort, and I just want to reach out to you and the sheriff both. I appreciate the efforts because Ron can definitely, it's really went away in the past, but this is really, really good to hear this. And I feel like with our IT guys and especially this new one here with the city, it seems like we put a spaceship on the moon, doesn't we? So I think we're heading down the right road, and I know I spoke to fire chief and then the ex-fire chief, of course, and then ours. This is really, really good news. We don't get nothing else out of this meeting. This is exciting. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
The chief said it's a good thing for the sheriff department and all the emergency service, but most of all, it's a good thing for the citizens they
There you
serve.
go.
That's right.
It helps the citizens. I mean, it take that one glitch out of it where everything works smoothly. And Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize David to continue to work with the combined dispatch along with the city council.
I just wanted to say something too about this. I agree with Commissioner Williams. Anytime the city and the county is duplicating services, you're costing the taxpayers money any way you look at it. Not only can you expedite it, you can do it cheaper. So I'm all for anywhere we can work together as far as, like the next thing on the agenda is building inspections. I think this is all good for the citizens of Columbia County, so.
Is that the end of discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Witt?
On behalf of the city, is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the interim city manager Dial work with Mr. Kraus to continue the negotiations and that we kind of expedite this service and try and get it going as soon as possible.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second discussion by council. I've talked with Chief Butler several times on this, and I think they're doing a great job working together, and they both know what they need to properly take care of our citizens, and so I think they're working behind the scenes to get the right combination for us to do this. I'm in favor of it. Ms. Axe, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
We have the interlocal for building inspections. Mr. Kraus, you want to?
So basically, both boards approved that we should work together towards making the building inspections work as one department. The county has adopted the interlocal was drafted by both attorneys, Mr. Dial and myself. The county's adopted that. The city has not yet had a chance to see it, but we wanted to bring up to make sure that everybody's on the same page for the building inspector. What it would be is only building inspections. It's not land development regulations, it's not zoning, it's not utilities. The county would provide just building inspection and building inspection services, and it would be paid for by 100% of the fees generated through the permit system.
Yes, Mr. Kraus is correct. Since the loss of our building official, the county has been filling in and helping us on a temporary basis. This is basically just to extend that agreement, and as the interlocal agreement we came up with, I think we put in a 180-day timeline in case the city wants to go back to building official, or if the county decides one day that they don't want to do it anymore. We thought this was a cost-efficient way to do it, and like Mr. Kraus said, the city will still maintain its code enforcement and building and zoning. This will just be for the county to do the permitting and building inspections. And like Mr. Kraus said, they will maintain the fees for any of those permitting services.
I think this is a pretty good deal all the way around. Is there any discussion on it?
I'll make a motion that we approve the interlocal for building inspections.
Mr.
City.
Ford, I think the county's already approved it.
Right.
Oh, that's right, we did approve it.
Yeah, I thought it was already
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Chairman, so is this going to be on our agenda coming up? I haven't seen the document yet.
Yes, sir.
Will it be at the next meeting, or?
I believe, I don't know, yeah, Audrey says it will be on the next meeting for the interlocal agreement.
Definitely for moving forward. I think anyone who's dealt with anything to do with permitting knows this will streamline it, and if you can help citizens streamline things, it's going to help with development. So I think that's a good thing.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I think you got a constituent
Yeah.
want to speak.
You got a public comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think our format is a little bit different, Chairman. If you look at the sheet I filled out, I put, at the city council meeting, we'll put public comment.
Oh,
I put
okay,
5
I'm
and I
sorry.
put 9,
I'm
so
sorry.
that speaks to the different items on the,
I was wrong, I'm
on the
sorry.
agenda.
Hey, go ahead, Mr. Warren.
I don't, council, and commission, I don't oppose the building inspector, concept. I think it's unfortunate that in these situations, that could have been avoided, that the county has to do the heavy lifting in many cases when it comes to the city on certain things that if the city sometimes would listen to their citizens, we wouldn't be in this point. I think that, for over 2 years, I expressed to the city council how important it was when we had a current building inspector to implement the provisional program. Did I not, Commissioner Murphy? And I think even in a county meeting, Commissioner Murphy, which he doesn't often say this, said, Sylvester's absolutely right. That's how the county is extremely successful in having building inspectors. They use the provisional program. So I would love to see at some point the city continue to look to hire a building inspector, and if anything makes sense, start looking at some of the things that the county do that's smart, that keeps them ahead and making sure that they have proper staff in their departments, such as the provisional program. We've used it in the past when it was necessary to hire certain people. I don't know why it was such a hard sell to the city council not to use that. We wouldn't even be in this predicament if we were to use the provisional program. Mr. Chairman, I hope I'm not out of line. I know I'm speaking on item 9 as well, but I will say, and I don't say this to criticize the folks that were on the board the longest as they worked that deal out with the state. I think that sometimes people get wee-weed up when they're in a crunch or a timeline. I think the county has found themselves in a hard timeline with that money they got from the state. And that's why, as a business person, I'm very cautious as to where I borrow money, how I get money, or where I get money from, and what those parameters of borrowing that money are. I think y'all have gotten yourself in a balloon payment with the state, in a sense, where y'all up against a hard timeline. Y'all got to pay that money back. And you're putting pressure on the city when I think that there was a failure to get commitments in writing and do some planning on the behalf of the county before they got that money. And so I just can't sit here and listen to we blaming each other as government entities and say, hey, look, we all failed in some areas, we all own it, and we just see how we can move forward. And that's just my piece on it. I just think that it was just some poor guidance on taking that money before y'all had a concrete plan and some signatures in place and some agreements to make sure y'all can provide what y'all told the state before y'all got their money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Mr. Chair, I just disagree 100% with that assessment right there. First of all, we didn't take a loan, we took a grant. I don't have any, you talk, now I'm talking. I don't have any, I don't feel like we're up against a timeline. I understand if we don't provide jobs within the 10-year period, we got to pay the grant back, but I've never doubted that the industrial park could not be developed and couldn't meet those requirements. Again, it's not like you took a loan, it's a grant. There would be some way to waive it, or the state would work with us on it because they know we're moving forward. That's why the state has continued to invest millions of dollars out there. We've got our first tenant, and much like many other areas, once you get the first tenant, the dominoes fall. I think the county has done its due diligence out there, and that's why the county is in the utility business today, because we realized that, we had to do that to make that work. So I think we've adjusted along the way to make that industrial park work, and I'm not under any pressure or making any rash decisions. I think we've made good decisions out there, which is why we have the infrastructure going on out there we have, and the money from the state and the support of the governor. So that is 100% not an accurate assessment in my opinion.
And Mr. Wood, I'll echo exactly what, because I was there, myself and Mr. Williams. And David, I would urge you in a future meeting to bring that agreement, and I'm gonna ask David Krause to sit there and read it from front to back, because what Mr. Williams is saying, we did commit. Myself and Ron were in the same parking lot when the governor called myself and the other 4 commissioners over to his car and told us, Tim, you guys better send me some paperwork here quick. That was on a Tuesday, and we got it to him on the following Thursday. He said, because I'm fixing to send y'all some money. And the point he was simply making was, you can't go out when Tom's potato chip knocks on the door and said, okay, well, hold on a minute, I'm gonna run to Tallahassee and see what I can get at. That was the EOC money that the governor had committed to. And he knew the importance. He sat right there in his office and told us the importance of the North Florida Mega Industrial Site. And he knows, and everybody in Tallahassee knows, that writes this. So when this system is completed, we're up and running. And what you just said a minute ago, Mr. Witt, with this first customer online, now we know we got some other hurdles, moving dirt, getting follow the track and everything, but we're big boys, we're gonna get there. But my whole point is that the way we went about doing it is the fastest and most, it's not like they're gonna come knocking on our door here next year and say, hey, it's time for you to start paying us back. And he thoroughly explained that. But what Ron said, we made a commitment, we shook their hand that day in that bar lot, and we signed them papers. When this system is completed, we gotta produce jobs within a 10-year period, and we're gonna do that. Yeah.
And I just like to say, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm doing what's necessary to create an avenue to get where we need to be.
Right.
I'm not blaming anyone. But I said in an economic development meeting with the past county, or the past city manager, and I heard him state in the economic development meeting that the city could not provide the water to the industrial park, and that they were going to concentrate on basically maintaining their system that they have now. And I know that city manager's not here anymore, but that's one of the reasons we've made the decisions we've made, and that's why I'm committed to moving forward with decisions we've made.
Here is, I did not jump the gun. I did not bow a pig in the poke when we signed the agreement for the additional dollars that the state gave us. And if you guys remember, when we was over in Jacksonville, we was there for the governor to award us some more from the first money on the industrial park, which made, and then that's when he called us over to the side and said, look here guys, you all need a sewer treatment plant. You all make sure you get that application in as soon as possible, and I'll make sure you get that money, and we got it. Yep. So I don't feel bad about going the wrong direction. I feel that we had all the folks on Martin Luther King and Washington Street and Lulu and Scrub Town and wherever you live in this community, a place, an opportunity to make an environment so you can get you a good paying job and take care of your family. And I'll roll the dice on that any day.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment, please? Mr. Chairman, can I make?
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
I just want to comment on the comment that was made about the city manager making that comment. I, as the utility director for the city of Lake City for the last few years, have never made that comment to any city manager. So I just want to make it known, if a past city manager made that comment, it did not come from the city of Lake City's utility department. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I think we got the,
And he got fired. Okay, go on.
yeah, you go. Let's don't talk about that. Okay, we're done with the building inspection. I'm sure the city's gonna move on that. We need to go to the fishing game pier at Lake Montgomery. Mr. Kraus, you want to give us an update?
Yes, I think Mr. Dial and myself also would like to recognize Chris Wynn from Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, Mr. Wayne came by, I think it was week before last, and met with me and the mayor about rebuilding the pier at Lake Montgomery. Myself, I think it's a great idea. The mayor thought it was a great idea. Me and Davis talked about it. I think it's a great idea for the community to give the youth to rebuild that pier, to have somewhere to go fishing, for people to go out and just stroll on the pier. But Mr. Lynn could speak to it more, but like I said, the city's in full favor of it. We just need to know how we need to work together to get the additional funds that the fishing game need to be able to complete the pier.
Thank you. I just want to kind of say it's quite an honor to be here. This feels like a monumental meeting, you know, where the city and the county is working together. So I'm happy to be here. Chris Wynn, work for Fish and Wildlife. We definitely want more places for kids to get out and fish. That's the bottom line. And in this case, Lake Montgomery, as most of you know, is right down the road from the VA. So we've gotten a lot of feedback since the city and us had to pull that pier out back in 2017 from locals. And some of those include the VA and many kids. So I'm kind of excited to be here to announce that we've got what we think is about half of the funding, $150,000. We think we'll need a total of around $300,000. That's based on some preliminary estimates that come from previous piers that we have built. Last one being in Suwannee County, Lake Suwannee, near Live Oak. And that pier unfortunately burned down a couple years ago. So we've got several priorities and needs in my 17 county area, but we have prioritized Lake Montgomery Pier as a real need, and hope we can work a way forward for the county and the city and any others that would like to join in getting the other half of the funding to work on before July 1st, 2022. Be happy to answer any questions.
You said by July 1st.
Sir?
You said by July 1st.
July 1st is the beginning of our end and beginning of our fiscal year, and that's going to be our target. Now, we can obligate funds, you know, and go into the following year, but we need to identify that other half before July 1st. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, me and Mr. Wynn have scheduled a meeting on February the 8th, I believe it is.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct? At 2 o'clock at City Hall. So anybody that'd like to come to that meeting, we're inviting the community, anybody that wants to partner with us on it and try to get this thing moving along.
That's when, Mr. Mayor?
February the 8th, which is a Tuesday, I believe, at 2 o'clock at City Hall.
I've been trying to get that date on national holiday for several years now, so that's a good date. February the 8th.
Mr. Williams?
Mr. Kraus, would you agenda that on our first meeting in March?
Yes, sir.
And give us some information on where we possibly can get some money from in our budget to fund a portion of that deficit.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Williams on a put it on a March agenda. I think if the city has their meeting before, I think the county obviously has several funding sources we could look to. Your TDC might be an option with this as well, but if we let the city kind of mull it over first and see what they're able to come up with, if they're able to come up with anything, then we'll know what our ask is at that time. So a March meeting gives them time to get through their meeting the mayor has scheduled.
I don't think we have any more discussion on this. I don't think we need.
Chair, on the February 8th, I'll do my very best to be there, because this is in the middle of 5 again. And I've had several constituents, I'm not gonna build this dock, I ain't gonna bid on this dock, I build docks. And I don't wanna, we gotta come up with a plan as a community, how you build this dock and maintain it. Because you know as well as I do, that's been the problem with the docks in the past. And if the city is gonna take jurisdiction, which you do have, over, there's gotta be a maintenance plan. Me and James Montgomery argued this for 30 years. I want to park on every corner, but if you can't maintain them, there ain't no sense in building. That's all there is to it. And I did a little bit of math. I ain't gonna get into debate here, but that, 300,000 pushing what you want to do in today's wood price. But I hope it can be done. And again, I'll go on point. I ain't building this thing, but I'll help you with all the knowledge that I may have with it. But because February 8th, hopefully we'll have some other people that attend that meeting. But there's a lot of things that we really need to talk about in order for the longevity of this project.
Okay, I think we covered the Pier at Lake Montgomery. I appreciate it, Mr. Wynn,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see that added to our agenda for not this one, but the next meeting, the last one in February. Would that be possible?
Mr. Wynn.
Can we put this on the last agenda in February for the city?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to easements for the new city fire station.
All right, as you know, the city is planning to build a fire station there next to the west side branch of the library and the extension offices. That is one piece of parcel that was designed with a retention pond. In addition, the way it's set up, there's going to be a sharing of the driveway. We've never put into writing who's responsible for what or where things would be. And so there's been some questions on the retention issue, and I believe the city's engineer is here to talk about that. So the two questions is, do we need an easement for the water to drain from the fire station to our retention pond, which is back behind the library? And the second issue is, my request is that we form an interlocal agreement on the shared driveway and the future maintenance costs of that shared driveway.
Mr. Chair, my name is Chris Camille. I'm the civil engineer working on that project for the city. I'm here if you have any questions, but sort of what prompted this was we're getting our water management district permit, okay? And that permit was just to modify the existing permit that's there. So the county has an existing permit for those existing stormwater ponds, and our runoff is just changing because of the different building, but we have plenty of capacity in that existing pond. However, the pond's on the county's portion, while the fire station is on the lot splitted portion where the fire station is going on to. And typically, when you have sort of two properties like that, you would have some sort of easement associated with it. However, with this being an existing system, there could have been a provision maybe for as being a prescriptive easement, something that had existed and is just going to continue to exist. But that's prompted many people to say, you know what, maybe we should go and formalize some of these easements for drainage. There's already city utilities crossing the lines, but that's typical all over the places we've been talking about this evening. But then also the concern about maybe driveways, et cetera. So I think there's two components here. The long-term maintenance and agreement that you're talking about, but also to allow maybe construction continue because there's funds available for it and we're trying to avoid the escalating construction costs, that we need to give the Water Management District some sort of answer so that maybe they could issue the permit in a way that says the city and county are maybe working together on something so they can issue that Water Management District permit. That's sort of our critical key component right here to getting the construction started and to avoid escalating construction costs.
What about the maintenance part of the driveway? You'll have heavier trucks on that driveway, it wasn't built for that.
That is correct. The way, I believe, and you can correct me, the fire station is designed, it's a pull-through fire station where they're gonna drive in off of Hall of Fame Drive, drive out the backside, and then use the entrance. Obviously, a fire truck fully loaded with water is a lot heavier than what the original design was of the parking lot, back when it was a Hall of Fame. And so there is some questions of how we're gonna handle since it's split right down the middle of the road, how we're gonna handle the long-term maintenance of that drive. Absolutely.
And just to clarify, the exiting of the fire truck is completely on the lot split portion of the new pavement. It's only the entering, coming back into the site would it be using that sort of shared driveway coming into the site.
So what's the recommendation from you, David, to this board?
Well, I think we need to have the two attorneys get together and put together an interlocal agreement spelling out specifically how we're gonna share costs on paving, repaving, and future maintenance of that drive.
So David,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the attorneys to do so.
have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And then the
Okay,
second issue is the stormwater issue.
Okay, I need a vote from the city.
I'd make a motion that we would have the attorneys engage in the interlocal.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Would you like me to address about the stormwater portion? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Go on to number 8, natural gas, North Florida Mega Industrial Park presentation, Mr. Joffrey. Just state your name and Mr. Joffrey should be.
Good evening. My name is Tom Jeffrey. I'm the General Manager and CEO for Florida Gas Utility. It's a pleasure to be here tonight in front of the city and county leaders to talk about the industrial site and natural gas. First, a little bit about my background. I've been in the natural gas industry for almost 40 years here all in the state of Florida. I've done just about everything there is to do in the natural gas industry. I'm very knowledgeable in all aspects of every part of it, from operations to supply and everything in between. We have a relationship between my company, Florida Gas Utility, and the City of Lake City. We are what's known as a joint action agency or a quasi-governmental entity. We exist to serve our members, much like a co-op. And one of our members is the City of Lake City and their gas department. One of the advantages, I had a couple of maps. If I can have the first map put up on the screen, please. One of the advantages that we bring to all members is under joint action, we get to share resources. So when the city of Lake City needs additional resources, they can lean on our organization to get those resources. And that happens all the time. Our members help each other out, and we're in it for the good of each of the, all of the members. The map that I wanted to show you, I don't know, does everyone have a copy of it?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Was this map here that looks like a pipeline. And it starts in Texas and it comes all the way and goes into Florida. So I have 25 members all in the state of Florida, from just inside the Alabama-Florida state line all the way down to the very end of the system. One of our members is the last customer on the system, City of Homestead. And Lake City sits about halfway in between. And so a tremendous amount of natural gas comes into the state and goes down to the southern part of the state, because the largest user of natural gas in the state is Florida Power and Light, generating electricity. So a lot of my members are south of Lake City with a lot of volume. They use a lot of gas. And so when Lake City needs more gas, we have no trouble in making sure that they provide it. The second map that you have that looks like this in your package is one that I want to talk a little bit about, just to orient you a little bit. The orange line on the bottom with a line going north into Lake City is Florida Gas Transmission, which is an interstate pipeline company. The yellow line at the top is Southern Natural Gas Pipeline. They are also an interstate pipeline company. Both of those pipes are full, okay? There's no space left in those pipes to contract to move your gas supply through. We do not buy gas from the pipeline. Nobody does. They buy it from producers or marketers. We just buy space in the pipeline to move that commodity along. There's no more space in these pipelines for any new entry into the marketplace. The light blue line that goes from the red line east along Highway 90 is the City of Lake City's existing pipeline that does go to the industrial site. It's a small diameter pipe with low pressure, but it has the ability to provide service to the industrial park today on a limited basis. The rose-colored line,
Is it on a limited basis?
on a limited basis today, yes. It can only do so much, okay? The rose-colored line is owned by an investor-owned gas utility called Peoples Gas. They're the largest one in the state. They tap into that yellow line and they come down, they serve a prison, and then they also connect into the Lake City system to provide emergency need for backup, okay? Again, not a very big line, can only provide limited service to the industrial park, okay? Lake City, you know, I've had discussions with Mr. Brown and Mr. Dial, has always had the position, and they continue to have it today, and they will have it in the future, every day in the future, that they're willing, able to provide service to that site for any industrial customer that you bring to the table, any of them. Okay, so I heard earlier that you lost an entity because of natural gas. I wasn't aware of that. I wish I had. I would love to have participated in that, because that's not true. Okay, natural gas is available, and it's always going to be available to that industrial site through the City of Lake City.
I don't think the question is whether the gas is available.
In
It's
any
how you
quantity.
get the gas to the site.
In any quantity that's needed.
But
Okay.
I think the issue is how to get the gas to the site.
That's
How
correct.
long it take?
That's correct. So Lake City has access to Florida Gas Transmission, and if a large industrial customer were to show up, they would go back either to the line that goes north, that orange line that goes north, and takes more service off of that, or down due south to what's called the main line for Florida Gas Transmission and run a line up there, okay? The reason that hasn't been done already is that's not the way the natural gas industry works. Because you could put in a 2-inch line, or you could put in a 10-inch line. You don't know what you need because you don't know what the customer needs are, okay? So at this point in time, to my knowledge, there's no known industrial customers needing natural gas that we've been asked to take a look at and just determine if it's how we would go about getting gas to that customer. The problem with the line, that orange line that goes north, is it's only a 3-inch line, okay? It's under high pressure, but it's only 3 inches in diameter. So there's only so much gas that we're going to be able to get off of that. The main line is actually 3 pipes, the smallest of which is 24 inches, the largest 36 inches. And they operate at 1,200 pounds per square inch, so a lot of gas there, okay? So if a big customer comes in, we would likely go down to that main line, tap into that, and run the line up to the industrial site. Natural gas utilities do that all the time. It's called a feasibility study or an expansion program. The key is to know what the needs of the customer is, so you build the right infrastructure. Because if you build it too big, the rate is going to be too high and no one's going to pay it. If you build it too small, you run out of space before you run out of customers, okay? So knowing what the customers are, or at least as best information as you can get, is important. The key pieces of information you need isn't how much they use on an annual basis or a monthly basis or a daily basis. It's how much do they need on their maximum hour, because that's what determines the size of the pipe. How much they need on the maximum hour throughout the year. That's the key piece of information. And how much pressure do they need to operate their facility, okay? So those are 2 things. Once those are known, then we go through a process to determine where we need to go to get that much gas, what route do we need, the size of the pipe, do we need to interconnect with an interstate pipeline or not, and then we go about estimating costs for engineering and permitting, materials, contractor for installation, inspections, and contingency, and that will produce a rate. And that rate would be what the industrial customer would be asked to pay. Okay. The timing is always, in a site like this, the customer will take a lot longer to build their facility than it will to build the gas pipeline to get to them. Let me repeat that. It will take longer to build the facility in the industrial park than it will to build the natural gas line to serve them. Very important, okay? The industry is not in the business of building it and they will come. Again, what are you going to build? You're going to build a 4-inch line? You want to build it to 8-inch line? You don't know, okay?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that. This orange line that runs up 47 pretty much,
Yes, sir.
I guess supplying gas to the city.
Correct.
How did they know how much gas they were going to use when they run that orange line up there?
They didn't.
That's exactly my point.
Correct. And right now, that lateral is almost full. So when Lake City needs more,
What size line is that, sir?
3-inch.
So it's
Yeah.
not a big,
And that was built in 1960, so it's been around 60 years. Okay.
they were looking forward.
So yes, you could build it today if you want to. If you don't have a customer, who's going to pay for that until the customer shows up? You have to operate it, you have to maintain it, you have to do everything you need to do, and you don't have a customer.
Now,
And I'll reiterate again, it'll take longer for the customer to build their facility than it will for us to build the pipeline. Okay?
is that orange one the line that would provide us? None of these others are an
Correct.
option, right?
That's
Okay, it's just
correct.
the orange line that runs right through across.
That yellow line is not an option.
Okay.
The cost for that pipeline to make that handle more gas is exponentially too expensive. They don't even talk to people about
Purple
it.
line, it's full.
Yeah, it's the tail end of their system.
Okay.
They're not interested in doing anything there. Okay. So, as you all know, the city of Lake City already has a natural gas utility. It's established and provides full service to all current and any potential customers. They comply. It's a heavily regulated industry, just like water and wastewater. It complies with all applicable state and federal regulations. They're members of us, so they get assistance through us on any natural gas items they need. Lake City has their own pipeline capacity. It's the least expensive capacity in the state of Florida. And they have access to all of my 25 members' capacity, which is also the cheapest in the state of Florida. The county does not have a natural gas utility yet. They would need to establish that both at the federal level and at the state level. They would have to create an operations area that would have full and complete manuals, a safety, they're subject to safety audits every year. They have to comply with a drug and alcohol program specific to the natural gas industry, cannot be commingled with any other drug and alcohol program that the city or county may have. They're required to do public awareness programs, damage prevention programs. They would need engineering, customer service, accounting, sales and marketing, IT, and most of all, gas supply. Not sure how the county would go about getting gas supply. These pipes are full. They'd need an expansion, which means the cost of that space in the pipeline that's created would be the most expensive in the state of Florida. The city of Lake City has the least expensive capacity on these pipelines in the state of Florida. So this is a perfect opportunity for the city and county to work together. The city is willing and able to provide any type of natural gas service to the industrial park, and the county assistance in that would be helpful. One final point, that the Florida Public Service Commission has exclusive jurisdiction to determine natural gas territories in the state of Florida. There are no predetermined territories. It is all done through either an agreement or a dispute. And if the city and county are not working together well on this natural gas for the industrial park, and the county went off on their own to try to create a natural gas utility, the city has every ability to stop you from doing that by going to the Public Service Commission and through a territorial dispute. And the city has all the cards. They would win that battle. I've been in 5 territorial disputes in my career. The city would have that advantage. I don't think that's necessary. But I just wanted you to be aware of that that's available to the city if you all aren't working well together on this project. But this lends itself perfectly to you all working together.
I think they have some questions, Mr. Joffrey.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, first of all, I don't take threats lightly. And secondly, we have a grant from the state of Florida that in the state, and we're gonna hire someone to tell us the best option. After all is said and done, they might say, well, guys, y'all partner with the city, or they might not, but we owe ourselves that opportunity to do so. So the state awarded us a grant to do a study. David, when that's gonna be on the county agenda?
It will be on the county agenda on the 10th. It's a $26,000 or $25,000 feasibility
We're gonna
study.
award it to someone to evaluate where we are and make a recommendation. And the recommendation will probably say, you're a partner with the city, but we owe ourselves that information to do so.
And you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not here to tell you not to do that. I'm just here to lend my experience to you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Witt.
I guess I'm a little confused. On one hand, you're saying there's no capacity and these pipelines are all full, and the other hand, you're saying you can get us gas to whatever client comes, we get out there. I think one client we had looking at the industrial site used more gas, just the one client, than the whole city combined today. So how are both of those true? If there's no capacity in the lines, how are you gonna get us gas?
Because I have 25 members who all have space in that pipeline, and they don't use it all at the same time. That's the beauty of joint action, is that I get to maximize the efficiency of the assets. So I have the ability to provide that service to any industrial customer that shows up at the industrial park with the assets that I have in hand today.
I guess the confusion becomes when Project Birdcage came, and that's the project that they're talking about, Project Birdcage. We submitted to the city what their needs were, and the response we got back was the city could not provide it without an $11 million investment. So they told us they could not provide it.
Without an $11 million
And that is our concern, that we are able to provide it.
They said they could provide it. It takes $11 million to provide it.
But if I'm in the business, why don't I say, well, if you all need this, I'm gonna make that investment, I'm gonna recoup my money back.
Because if there's no customer there to take the service, then there's no problem. If there's a customer And the feasibility study is run, and the customer is willing to pay the rate that comes out of that, or help in paying for the construction cost, then there's no issue at all.
So.
That
so
customer
any-
will have gas service.
So if anyone want gas, they got to pay to have it ran to the place.
Of course, just like they do with any utility service.
So
You don't want the rest of the customers paying for the line that only serves the industrial park, do you?
But
So you think somebody's gonna pay $11 million to run gas?
Absolutely
Rather
they
than go somewhere
will.
else? That's hot gas?
Absolutely they will, sure. Because the rate won't be that big if they're a large customer. $11 million is not a big investment if it's a large use customer.
So
Happens all
what
the
you're
time
saying
around the
is,
state.
if they pay the $11 million, they negotiate the rate down?
No, I'm saying that the $11 million will generate a rate based on the type of usage that they have. You can do the math and come up with a rate. Will that customer be willing to pay that rate or not?
So who sets that rate?
If the answer is no, then the option is, well, will you help pay for the $11 million, pay $2 or $3 million, and the rate can come down to where you need it.
So who sets the rate?
In this case, the city of Lake City would set the rate. They're the owner of the gas utility.
What you said earlier is one of the cheaper rates available. I'm down here.
Sorry, I hear you over here.
But did I understand you, I mean, the rates that they're buying it off of the main line, we're gonna use that word, is the cheapest they can be purchased.
That's correct,
And,
because we've had that capacity since 1960.
correct. And Toby, I don't know the gas business by no means, but, and I don't wanna put words in your mouth if I say something stupid, stop me. But they own the capacity of what's in that line. And it's my understanding that not only the city of Lake City, Key West, whoever all this line provides, there's X amount of decks available, and they may only use one deck a day, and so, but they're guaranteed two, so they sell that right back to the system. And that's where the availability comes, because what you just said a minute ago, I agree, I see where Toby's confusion is, and it confuses me too, but we're thinking there's only X amount of things that go, all this gas is going used, but all this gas is not consumed every day.
That's correct, yes. So what companies do is they contract for their peak day in the pipeline. That happens one day every 10 years. So every other day of the 9 years, 364 days, there's extra space there that I have control over, that I can move around to get gas wherever it needs to go.
And on Memorial Day, myself, Steve, you, I think were on there, the young lady here, and maybe the group from Peoples, and David Kraus, correct, David?
Yes.
And I think it was spoke of that day, I can't remember who, everybody, it was saying a lot more than I understood, but Steve, you sell back X amount of decks a day or whatever, correct, therms, whatever they call it. But that makes the point. You get this much through it, everybody don't use it, what you just say, one time a year?
Every 10 years, one day you use it.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So Mr. Jeffrey, if any user we could get could be provided, and it would be there by the time they're ready, and in your experience, you have a lot more lines out there than we do. We just have the one, you're managing 25. Are businesses willing to invest in that to get that cheaper rate?
Some are, yes. Some are not. Some will pay the rate. Some will say, that's too high a rate for me to pay on an ongoing basis. Can I help buy the line down? Because I have capital now, right? Because I'm building my facility, so I can divert some capital to get that rate down to what I'm willing to pay.
But that also gives the city and the county, a city and a county, an opportunity to come in and say, okay, well, I'll divvy up 2 million, 3 million, whatever.
That's correct.
And so I think the conversation's incorrect. Instead of starting from what do you need, figure out what they need, and then figure the cost backwards to figure out what the rate would be. And we could present multiple offers. You don't have to just present the high cost offer. You could present offers with a subsidy of funding of the line, or you could present offers as if, we build the whole line.
Correct.
So there's a lot of possibility there. I think one of the key things is the rate differential. Because I guarantee you this, as a pretty high gas user myself, I'm not gonna pay the premium rate regardless of availability. I'm gonna want the lower rate. So I think we need to start this conversation and maybe involve you a little earlier when we're looking at these companies, instead of coming out there and saying, we can't do it, when we can definitely provide it. It's just, what's the cost to provide it?
That's
And who's
exactly
willing
right.
to pay the cost? Is the company willing to pay the cost?
Yeah.
Is the city or the county willing to pay the cost? There could be some places to work together there to subsidize that rate. I don't think it'd be right to put it on other users to pay the cost. I mean, I'm personally not a fan of that.
Let me ask you something. In your experience, how does that happen when a city or county has something of this nature and they want to, I mean, who usually pays the most? You know, is it all over the board, or is there kind of a industry regular that
Well,
everybody does?
My experience is, you know, I've been a businessman a long time, is you get the customer to pay for as much as they can, and then you figure out what to do to fill in the gap.
So there's no little fixed thing. It's just whatever you can work with a customer to do.
My experience is that, and I've done this many different times. When I started with the previous company, we're in 3 counties. When I left, we're in 13. So we expanded into 13 different counties from scratch. So I've done this at least 10 different times. I've never found where the industrial customer will not pay the price for the natural gas.
How do you, we have a mega site, and you said, I heard you say that one will not run a lot if you don't know how much is gonna be used.
Yes, sir.
Well, how do you design a gas system where you only have this one customer now, but you got 2,500 acres to be developed?
So you take a look at the first customer who shows up. How big are they? How much of the site are they going to take up? And what do they need? And you start with that, and then you build in some assumptions and talking with you all about what other customers might show up. Keep in mind, natural gas is optional. A lot of industries don't use natural gas, okay? So some of the tenants that you get in here won't need natural gas. Some will. And that's always the dilemma. So you have 2 ways of building the line to where you can expand it, right? It's the diameter size of the pipe. So if the first customer requires a 4-inch line, you'll probably put in at least a 6 to handle any additional growth. The second is, what pressure are you operating it under? If you operate at 100 pounds pressure, the volume you get through that is relatively low. If you operate it at 500 pounds pressure, now all of a sudden you can get a lot more volume through there with the same infrastructure. So that's how you do it. Is you take a look at that first customer, you oversize it for them at a low pressure so that you can increase pressure if you get an unexpected tenant coming in.
Well, then my obvious question would be, why was our answer no, we cannot provide the gas?
No,
I wasn't involved in that, so I don't know.
Let me be clear. The answer wasn't, no, we cannot provide it. We cannot provide it in the timeline that you all want it.
Okay, well, the timeline should not be an issue. Like I said, no one started building inside the industrial park.
They felt that we could not provide the gas in the timely manner that they would need it.
Okay, well, I wasn't a part of that, so I can't speak to that, so.
Can I speak to that? This mega industrial park, this has come up several times. And as far as supplying this gas, Steve, we got together, we put together a route where we could tie in the pressure and everything that was presented to us at the time. The problem we always ended up with is it seemed like every other day, the volume, pressure, or something changed. But to be honest with you and right up front with you, the city of Lake City, and Steve has the documents, we presented it several times. We can get it there. And we've had meetings where it was stated that the county would look into getting grants to fund the route and do different things and work with the city. We presented those routes. We were going to run it down our transmission line to cut down on costs to get it there and tie in. It's always been out there that the city of Lake City was willing and able to provide it. It just needed to come up with the funding to be able to do it. We could have got it there in the timeline that it needed, but we kept being told they were looking for funding, trying to find funding, and we never heard anything back. So it's not all on the city. I want to make that perfectly clear. We have the maps, we have the documents, and everything else where we put it together.
So at this meeting, is the city willing to commit to a price if the customer provides funding for the gas line, are you gonna work with them on the price? Because I've heard stories in the past where this is our price and this is what we're gonna get, and that's it, you know?
I've never heard that. I've never heard that, Commissioner.
Well, I talked to, everybody who I talked to, but Columbia Correctional Institute said they run into this issue with the city about gas, and that's why they're tied into people's gas. Because of the price per therm that the city wanted to charge the prison for the gas.
I don't know about the gas, but I do know that when we asked Wendell Johnson to put a meter there at the Oasis Bar, and we were gonna run water from the Oasis Bar to Ellisville instead of putting it in our own water system, he gave us a price so high until we couldn't afford to do it. Am I right there, William? And wouldn't negotiate us a price with as many, if you call it gallons of water that we was gonna use to service Ellisville. He would not come down on the price of it. He charged a sky high rate, and that's why we went to Ellisville and put in our own water system.
Commissioner, I can't speak on that. I wasn't here. I don't know the negotiation on that. But speaking about rates or something on the water on that end, I've had conversations with Mr. Kraus based on you all's consumptive use permit if we pumped it through the facility we have at Price Creek. And basically what our discussion was, and all this is just preliminary, this is just on doing research on our end. My take on it is, I'm not here to gouge anybody. All I ever asked for on the discussions that we had was basically to get back our money for the processing the water. That was it. And maybe a few percentage over. And then the whatever rate that the county wanted to charge. But back to the natural gas. We keep hearing that the city said that they couldn't supply it. We can supply it. We give the plan, we give the drawings, we give everything, we give a route. But all we ask for is the direction that we need to go to move forward to make it happen. And we have all that documentation. It's been brought up in several meetings that we've talked about. Steve's given I don't know how many presentations, especially in our utility meetings. And it's always talked about, well, we'll look to see what we can get the funding for. Well, that's all fine and well. We have a business, to Tom's point, and to Steve's point. Running a natural gas line without a customer is a little bit different than running a water line without a customer.
When you run a natural gas line without a customer, you're not charging the line at that time as you run it, are you?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So you're charging the line at that time. So as you run it, you charge the line.
And you're having to pay for what's in the line.
How do you charge a line and I see them keep putting pipes together? There's no gas in it then, is it? Is there?
No, sir. When the construction is complete,
That's what I'm
then
talking
they
about.
do a purging to get all the air and debris out of the line and put the natural gas into the line. And then it's charged. So it's done it's at the very end of the construction process.
Okay.
You don't leave a natural gas line empty. It's not safe to do that.
Mr. Chairman.
Regulations don't allow
Go
it.
ahead, Mr. Sampson.
Okay, so just to clarify, any development that would sign a deal today to start development, we can have gas there by the time they're finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for the gentleman. How does People Gas, what's the relationship between, he's a competitor of yours, y'all work together? Because his line's right in front of the industrial park too.
Yeah, Peoples Gas is a competitor. They're an investor-owned utility. They're not a municipal-owned utility. So they exist for their shareholders. So they're trying to make money so that they can pay their shareholders dividends and that type of thing. So yes, they have a line there as well that interconnects with the city of Lake City, and they have an agreement between the two parties. So Peoples Gas is willing to give them a very small amount of gas on an emergency need basis when their pressures get low. And a peak day like it might have this past weekend, for example. And that's all that agreement does at this stage, okay? But going back to, if Peoples wanted to serve this industrial park, the city of Lake City would go to the Public Service Commission with a territorial dispute and the city would win because they're already there first. Peoples didn't quite.
My question would be, if the city owns the gas line, why why wouldn't they be looking for funding to run that gas? They're gonna be selling gas to this customer from now on. It looks like to me, they would be the one hunting funding to run this gas line.
And they,
Or figure out how they can run this gas line.
in normal circumstances, they would. And it would not be hard to get, because they would have a customer contract to take to the bank to get the financing.
Well, I keep hearing, we're waiting on county to tell us how we can provide funding for this customer, for this gas line.
Well, I'm not familiar with that. I said under normal circumstances, if they were doing this on their own, they would have to find funding of their own, correct? And most of the time, they would go and borrow it. And with a customer contract, they would have no problem doing that.
So my question would be to the city, in what time frame could you run gas to the mega industrial park if somebody moved in out there and needed this kind of gas?
Like I
Do
said,
you have funding to do it, or would you have to wait for a grant or apply for a grant? Because that could take years.
I guess we need to ask Mr. Dial that, or where'd he go? Thank you, Mr. Dial.
Well, it comes back to the same thing like we did for Anderson Columbia. When Anderson Columbia came to us and they wanted to change over from diesel to natural gas for their asphalt, and we put in a dedicated 6-inch line to Anderson Columbia. The city funded that line, and what was it, $1.3 million, because we knew we were gonna have a dedicated customer that was already there, established, that we knew we'd get the payback over the time. This will be the same instance. Now, as far as the funding, this, like I said, this has been brought up several times between the utility board, which has commissioners and council on there. Only thing we've ever asked is tell us where you get the funding from, and we'll put the line in, we'll make it happen.
But that's not answering, I hear what you're saying,
You want us to tell you where to get the funding from?
What did I just say? I said brought it before the utility committee with both boards on there when these projects get brought up to give us the funding. Now, if we have a dedicated customer we know is out here is gonna burn $1 million of gas a month, yeah, they would probably be able to, the commission or the council would be able to come up with probably some way, either through a loan or something, if they wanted to establish that, kind of the same thing we did with Anderson Columbia. It's a case-by-case basis based on the development that's coming in there and the amount of gas that it's gonna burn. If you got a customer that's coming in there, like with Anderson Columbia, the payout was gonna be, we were gonna know we were gonna make our refund back on what we put in. But if you get a company that comes in there, you're gonna have to put in an $11 million investment, and they're only gonna burn a few $100s worth of gas a month. It's not worth it.
yeah, so Paul, what I'm hearing you saying, if the user have enough capacity, so you can see where you can recoup your money in a reasonable time, then it's worth the investment.
Yes, sir. And if you get a company in there that's burning that much natural gas, they want the best rate they can, because they're burning that gas every day, 365 days a year. So even for them to be able to invest some in the line themselves, like to Mr. Jeffrey's point, most of your big industries, they want to do it. That's why Anderson Columbia changed, because they knew that, in the long run, they were going to be saving money and making money by going with natural gas versus burning diesel. And that's the kind of company that you need to get. If you get a company that's really burning that much natural gas, to Mr. Jeffrey's point, $11 million isn't that big a deal to them, but it could be a shared expense for economic development, both with city, county. It goes back to everybody trying to work together to make it happen. It's just not saying, we can't get the funding. It's finding a creative way to get them here between the industry and the elected bodies that, want to make this happen.
I mean, the whole thing in a nutshell, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, is that the key to this problem is for that initial company to come to the table with an agreement.
Yes, to have it.
It's no more different than, I'm gonna rent 1,000 houses, I gotta rent it, it's a guarantee at the bank. You can get your money. And just like the gentleman just said earlier, and I think that was spoke when we met on Memorial Day, that, it's not like running a sewage line. We can provide this line within a time when I say we, contractors, whoever, in a year's time. Everybody out there, nobody's gonna build out in a year, especially dealing with Swanee River and DEP and all the other ones. So if I'm understanding, and I just keep going back to that Memorial Day, Tom, because I thought you was pretty clear to me, and David, because me and David had a conversation about that it can be provided, it's just a matter, who's gonna pay for it, and the truth is, you gotta have an agreement from that initial customer. Because I looked into the agreement thing that y'all had with Columbia, I mean, they made that happen. I mean, it's money in their back pocket, and it made sense. And I think that's what we're saying here right now.
So why did this customer feel they couldn't get the gas to them in time? That's my question.
Well,
If all this, what I'm hearing now is what was said, obviously this customer didn't hear that fact.
Well,
Because they were under the impression the city could not provide them gas in time. David, if you would like to step in on this, I guess I could.
Well, the only
I'd like to hear
comment
the
I-
explanation for that, so.
Well, Chairman, the only comment I'd like to make on that is, myself, as far as utility, and I'm pretty sure Steve can speak for himself, but neither one of us spoke to the customer. So I have no idea what information was relayed to the customer or what the customer was told. So I have never talked to a customer.
Can you give us some information on what happened or what was said?
So what happens when a customer comes? Whether they're recommended by EFI or by somebody else, they give us numbers that say this is what we believe our need for water is, for what our need for sewer is, what our need for gas is. We then pass those along to the city, and the city replies, can we do it, can we not do it? In this particular case, the city did reply with, they could do, I think, what was it, 170 on your existing line, another 50 through Peoples, and then anything else would require a major investment of $11 million. So we all agree to that. And so somewhere along the line, there was a miscommunication.
Steve, you come up,
Steve,
please?
yeah, come up here where we can talk to you, where we can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, that is an accurate statement. That is exactly what happened. The customer, to whatever degree, we never know that. It's always project, whatever it is. When they come to us, they give us a known volume that they say they're going to burn. We as the city, many years ago, provided the known volume that's in the capacity on the pipe that's out there now. We all know that is about 100 decks a day. It's a very small amount. We all know we have an interconnect with people. I have spoke to this point many times. However, the last customer, and I think it's the one that Mr. Williams referred to.
Project Birdcage.
Excuse me. There was never a timeline given. 9 times out of 10, we get an email from Glenn Hunter, and it basically says, can you provide this? And the answer is always, the city is a gas provider. The infrastructure that it's in place now is not capable of providing an industrial customer. There are routes. I have provided it, I know, for a year and a half now in the Utility Advisory Committee meetings where I've come up there personally, gave the presentations and said, we want to be the provider. But I'm telling you now, the city of Lake City does not have the money to fund this project. We done a feasibility study. That study showed, prior to the price market, the volatility in the market, that price showed that back then it would be about $11 million. That was just a feasibility study. We went to that same committee and I said, for $11 million, we can provide gas to anybody. That is a fact statement. It is on record that says we can provide. I have provided that to the members of the utility committee. Everybody was there has heard that. And I've said it over and over and over. I can provide it. What I've said is, without a customer, I can't build the pipeline. That's a fact. We are still today, right now, as I stand here, in the same exact situation we were in years ago. We can provide it, but we don't have the money to build it. If the customer comes online, for example, Anderson Columbia has been brought up. I was just speaking with Ms. Hall. The timeline was a year. It took about 6 months or so for engineering. I was the inspector on that job. I started in September. We had gas ready to do pipe fill in February. That's real numbers. 6 miles, 6-inch, high-density pipe fill ready for Anderson turnkey. It happened. The difference is we had Anderson Columbia, Justin Jones come to us and said, I need this much gas, and I don't care how much it costs. We're going to do this for you. We're not going to worry about rates. I'm going to pay your commercial rate. You have a commercial, you have a residential. It was never a debate, but it happened that fast. Warner Trucking was the same way. We got funding for that. It happened immediately. The mega site is we're missing funding. We're not missing capacity, we're missing funding. So everything that's been said tonight is a true statement. But we still don't have the funding. And I know I have said it to Glenn Hunter 1,000,000 times. Without a customer, I can't provide you anything. Without capacity and without pressure, I can't provide you anything. So we have given these statements over and over and over and over again.
I got a question,
So
Steve.
when the city
Hold on.
gave this
David,
information,
I want to ask him something real quick. I think it'll clear something. If we had a customer that said, all right, we're going to use this much gas, and let's say it's a bunch, that's when you can get the funding from what source? A bank or a guaranteed source? In other words, just like Anderson, we're going to buy it, we're going to be here, and that's when you can say, all right, I can get the funding to do it if your customer's going to sign an agreement to this
Correct.
nature.
So that's when we take, the first thing we do is we go to our provider and we say, can you get me this much capacity off the pipeline? And they tell us, yes, we can get you that capacity. Then we go to that customer and say, we can get that capacity. We think it's going to cost $11 million to build this. They factor that into the price of what it's going to say, and their rate's going to be 50 cents a decatherm. And that is agreeable for the amount of gas they're going to burn. An agreement is drawn up, whether it's through bonds, whatever the case it may be, paperwork is signed, city managers agree, everybody that's in the entity agrees, and then we go to engineering. Engineering supplies everything we're going to need for that, then it goes to construction, ultimately pipe fill.
Okay, so Anderson, is that what Anderson did? Gave you the funding?
That is
to
correct.
pay for the
We
to pay for
had
the
bonds,
line?
we had security bonds,
They guaranteed that you went and got the funds.
yeah, but it was,
Guaranteed if they didn't.
And that's the normal way of doing it. Y'all wouldn't go to a bank and borrow money based on, we're gonna sell this many millions of dollars worth of gas, give us $11 million to provide it.
if I put a pipeline in the ground today and I said fill it full of gas, I've got to start paying for it. And I can't afford to just have that capacity, just paying for it over and over and over. So that's another main reason why we got to have that customer. Nor could the county. The county doesn't want to go put a piece of pipe in the ground and just start dumping money into it in hopes they come. A real interesting part about this, and this is very important, I've heard this over many times, let's just build a big pipe and pack it full of a lot of gas. Well, that's expensive. Rates, industrial rates, that comes up right out of the gate. And if you can't provide that rate, now you've got this pipe and you can't get the customer to come on board because the rate's too high. So you've shot yourself in the foot. The gas industry is different in the regard that when that water line fills up, water doesn't cost you anything for that water to sit there. But when you're buying that gas, you buy capacity every morning. I believe it's at 10 o'clock is when we buy our gas. We buy that gas every morning. I buy those 4,000 decks, or 3,000, I burn the 1,500 or 12 I'm going to burn, I sell it back to the pipeline. It would be just that situation, but in reverse. Whoever's not burning their gas, we would be using that gas, and we would be buying into that discounted rate. But again, to your point, and I want to make sure David is exactly right. They have brought these to us, but with just a number, it's really hard to finalize any kind of contract.
and the issue becomes, when you present to the company, we can do X amount, we can do X amount today. If you need this amount, we're gonna have to build a line. The company says, you don't have the gas available, we're moving to the next site. The sites are that competitive in the economic development world.
And David, well, on this past, project, because you told me exactly what you just said, and that's where it basically sits. So it's just a matter of, are you willing to invest? But just like Tom just said a minute ago, it's a crapshoot. You build it, you gotta fill it, and the clock goes a ticking. And there ain't no county or city sitting in a position to be able to support that on a financial aspect. So it's just one of them deals where, because Steve said it a year and a half ago at the utility meeting, I think one of the very first ones, and I hate to toot his horn, but the fact is, Steve sat right here and told us, we can provide anything out there. It's just the funding aspect. And if I'm not mistaken, you didn't go into great detail, but the financing of it and everything was relevant to the bonds and what have you that's available to be able to do so.
That's correct, sir. It's
And-
all
and
relevant.
As the economic chair, I remember us having this discussion in an open format. I beat it, but it didn't go nowhere. And that's, at the end of the day, it's available. And I guess the young lady, that we were on the phone with, on the teleconference thing on Memorial Day from Peoples, I think it was, she put it point blank, and I think everybody in the room got excited, and on wherever y'all were, when she said, well, hey, we might be able to be a transporter of fuel. That was a real big deal, and so it's, capacities are there, but it's just like David just said, the world is, the economic world is, we're behind the 8 ball, that's all there is to it. You know, Ocala, there's been a lot of capital, personal investment, and, maybe they're, you know, get the, they're ahead of us, if you want to say. But I agree with what Mr. Rudy was saying also, you know, we gotta be in a position to move, but, I like what Tom just said, in the event that we put a deal together, they sign on the dotted line, it can be built in a year's time.
That's very important, sir. That's very important. So that takes, to your point, Mr. Ford, I agree with everything you said tonight. And the fact that the city of Lake City's going before the council for a territorial dispute, that'll never happen. I don't ever see that in our future, because I'm gonna make it work. I'm telling you guys, I'm gonna be committed to this to make it work. But to your point is, did we tell them we couldn't have the gas? Yeah. Because I can't give them the gas because I don't have the funding. But now, had they have signed on the dotted line, could they have had the gas?
So the answer should be,
I don't get
give you the, if you signed to put a plant here, we can have you gas by a year, 12 months after you sign.
That would be the direction I would carry
Because
the
it's gonna take them 12 months to build.
Correct. And that would
That's
be
what
the
I'm saying.
conversation, that was the way I would carry it. But what a lot of times, keep in mind, Mr. Ford, is I don't get to talk to these customers. The only person I get to talk to is either Mr. Hunter or Miss Jennifer, that she'll call sometimes, but that's all I get to talk to. So these customers are a complete secret to me. It's Project, whatever, Bumblebee, whatever he calls it. So when they come in here, they ask me for a quantity. And if I can't get it out of that 6-inch, that's all I can tell them. Now, if they come back to me and say, all right, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna do this, Mr. Ford, Mr. Williams, everybody on this board, they're serious about this one, then we can go to that next step.
Steve, it sounds like you've educated us a lot, and I want to move on if we can, but if you got something else.
I'm good. I guess I'm just harping on the fact.
I mean,
the answer should be, yes, we can give you the gas, but we need 12 months to get it to you.
And then
we can do that, obviously.
Okay.
And that should be the answer.
Yeah. And then obviously the cost of construction, and then that goes into rates and all that kind of stuff. But one thing to note, guys, is these people that are courting us for these kind of, they're big industries. They've done this other places. They're expecting these answers.
It's not an unexpected thing for them to go, okay, they want us to pay this to get this rate.
Yeah, they're not gonna come to Columbia County and go, oh my gosh, they're wanting us to do this. This is something that's expected within the market.
Right.
It happened at Anderson, Columbia.
Steve, tell me, am I right on what you just said? For a big gas user, we do not have the capacity at this time. But if you're gonna have a bill out of 12 to 18 months, we can have the gas on site at the quantity you need.
So yes and yes and no. The answer to that is, do I have the capacity in the pipe that's laying in the ground? No, sir. We can't get that off of that line.
I got that.
But if you've got a capacity that is real to the table, yes, sir, we can get it from Mr. Jeffrey's company. We have the capability to pull that capacity.
And a lot of times in this trying to cite a industry, they want a rate.
And I'll let Mr. Jeffrey speak to that.
And that rate, that rate can determine whether we get that business or not.
So the normal process is we get information from the potential customer, max hour and delivery pressure. With that, we do a feasibility study. And what that produces is what's called indicative rates. That's what you think the rate is going to be based on all the estimates that we've done, all right? You go back to the customer and say, here's what your indicative rate is. They look at that and say, it's going to be plus or minus a few percent, but it's going to be around that rate. If that's acceptable to them, they'll sign the agreement. Then when you actually do the construction, you use actual cost to develop the final rate, and that's what the customer pays.
So what I'm hearing tonight is, I reckon our development director don't even need to call you. His answer is, we can get the gas to you in a specified period of time.
That's correct.
Is that what the city's telling us tonight?
Upon a signed
Is
agreement.
that what the city's telling us?
Sounds like it.
Upon a signed agreement.
Yeah. So I think we should get our attorneys to write something up to that fact.
Well, let's get a motion, direction, whatever y'all want to do. Do we have a motion?
Well, a motion of what?
Well,
Mr. Chair,
He said we need to.
I've been waiting to comment,
You wanna
but-
direct, you wanna do a direct
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
motion?
but before we start writing, writing up anything, let's go through the process we going through. We've already been awarded money to do a study, do that study, and from what I'm hearing, that it's gonna probably, one way or the other, we'll know
Right.
exactly what we need to do.
Right. That sounds good to me.
Mr. Chair.
Do y'all need to direct staff to do anything?
Tom, sorry, Robbie, I know exactly when it's going up, but Tom, not to put you on the spot, but what can we expect on this feasibility study that the taxpayers of the state of Florida are gonna pay $27,000 for? We don't already know tonight.
I don't know how he can specify.
Yeah, how can you answer that?
That's not a question he should answer. Because
I'm not sure what the scope of what the feasibility study is that you're paying
You'd have to read
$27,000
him on the
for.
spot to do that.
What I've been able to provide to the city is, hey, if you go back to the main line and you put in a line, I think we looked at 2 or 3 different sizes of pipe. Here's how much each of those would cost you. Now, I can't get a rate because I don't know what the customer usage is yet, right? But I can tell you what it's going to cost, plus or minus, because, materials go up and down, all that kind of stuff. But today I can get, and we've done that.
And I agree with Mr. Williams, and what Ron, the point Ron makes, let it go ahead and make the study and let it be done what it is.
Yeah.
But my whole point from this point on, immediately, any customer coming to Columbia County or the city of Lake City looking for, future relocation here, any questions whatsoever, any of them, nobody answers the gas questions unless they're a gas professional.
Mr. Chairman,
We'll just,
Mr.
Well, I
Chairman,
think the,
I've got a
the answer to
question.
the gas question was just answered.
Yeah, so the feasibility study, is this the same company that the city just did a feasibility study with recently?
We have a grant from the state to do the feasibility study. You would have to do an RFQ or an RFP to get a vendor in which to conduct the study. So
I
we do
noticed
not
that-
know who would be conducting the study.
Okay, because I noticed there was one sent out, emailed after the last utility meeting by Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chair.
yes.
So, and I got a lot of information from you guys, and I want to thank you. I think we have a communication problem. I think how we're communicating with these potential clients, I don't see what the big deal is. It doesn't matter whether it's gas or whether it's water or whether it's any kind of utility. Now, we've got the pipes going to the site, but we don't have anything going to the specific place they're going to want to build. There's going to be those concerns with whatever they do with all the utilities. So the answer could be, when they ask us, can we provide gas? Yeah, we have unlimited capacity to serve you. We can serve whatever needs you have out there, and then let's get to the next step of how we do it. But I'm concerned that maybe these clients are getting conflicting answers, or maybe they're not getting the right answer. But
That's right.
and so I think on the county side, we may need to clean that up.
And we can direct staff to do that.
And we'll see what our feasibility study shows. Maybe it shows us other options, maybe it doesn't. But, to me, he answered your question. He's got unlimited capacity, so we should never tell any client we can't get them gas.
Right.
That's
And
correct.
I'm a little concerned, maybe we need to look at who's communicating with these clients, maybe our new position, or our new position we're going to advertise for and hire will help this along. But I'm concerned that maybe some of these people are getting mixed messages.
When we get our utility director, I believe that he'll work with Steve in every way we can. We'll have a whole lot more education about this, because like I said, Steve knows more than any of us about it.
Well,
So I kind of want to move on with this, guys. He's answered the question. He can give gas to the Empire State Building.
And I just have one more point, Mr. Chairman, because I've talked to other counties on how their economic development goes. And I know in a lot of other places, when a client comes to town, it doesn't matter whether the question is to the fire department or the question's to the utility director. It doesn't matter what realm they're asking the question in. They have one person they communicate with, and that's the only person that communicates with them. And that person reaches out to the experts, and that way, instead of dealing with 5 or 10 different people, they're dealing with one. And if we're not doing that, we're doing we're doing these clients a disservice.
But just like the meeting the other day, Mr. Witt, that took place on the 47 project, it was just like we did on Warner. You bring all the players into one room, they ask a lot of questions, give a lot of answers. Paul remembers, back when Warner came, and that's how the big boys do it, that are serious about development. And you pretty well go to a one-stop shop. And but Mr. Witt hit the nail on the head. It's who's communicating, and again, just like I think Paul said earlier, nobody ever talked about the timeline with them.
So I believe that staff has heard what we've said. They can streamline this. We can make sure we have a man straight in Steve's face when we need it. And do we need any direction or motion on this? I don't think we do. Just direction of staff. Let's streamline with Steve, get him on board with us so we know what we're doing, and let's do the feasibility study. And maybe there's another option. We don't know. But unless there's any more discussion, I want to move on to the mega industrial park. I have a public comment.
Thank you for allowing me to be
Thank you,
here
Mr.
tonight.
Jeffrey. Yeah, we've kept you up here long enough.
You provided us a lot of information.
Yeah, it has been enlightening.
Happy to come back anytime.
Thank you, sir. We have a public comment. Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Okay, and guys, I know we got mega industrial park, but we have discussed about, everything we've discussed has been about 50% mega industrial park. So let's talk about it, but let's keep it to to new stuff if we can. But I'll open discussion on the mega industrial park utilities.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Sampson.
so you guys have a new water use permit in the 2 million range for raw water only?
We have a water use permit for slightly over 2 million gallons.
Does the permit specify raw or potable?
I would refer to Mr. Bailey. It's both. It's both.
So you have a permit from Swanee River as well as DEP. If you pump potable water, you need a DEP permit, isn't that correct?
You were asking about the water use permit. That allows both uses. No, they do not have a DEP permit yet
But it is required to pump potable water.
to provide potable water, yes.
Okay. And so, to my point, the city has a DEP permit that far exceeds our water use permit. We could pump tomorrow, we could pump whatever we need up to well above both of our water use permits. The city had been working with the county administration as an option. We're just in the beginning stage of it to see if you wanted to work with us, because we're already ready to engineer, and we can put that in the ground and have it there before you've got anybody ready to be there. But in addition to that, we could do it at a fixed cost and price. We could take the end of the year cost, divide it up, and do like a cost plus 10. Master metered at the end, you can put it wherever you want it. So it'd still be your water and you bill it. That's a possibility. I think it would save the taxpayers quite a bit of money, because there's a good opportunity if you decide to do potable water, as you start drilling wells, it affects the city wells. The well you drilled that found the arsenic has affected us. Mike's having to do special measures now because of that well, and is going to have to continue to. And I don't know that it makes sense. You're talking about moving your well field possibly closer to ours. There's more potential to affect it again. We're already in place to pump the water. I don't know why we can't work together and work it out and get it done, save the county taxpayers money, which every city councilman is a county taxpayer as well. And at the same time, it's your water. You have the whole 2 million gallons, do what you want with it. What that would do as well is it would allow us to work on other pieces of that project. Ever since the sewer system got separated and we got moved out of it, which I think the cost is coming a little higher, a little closer to what we thought it would be, you're going to need a customer. We can work together to get you a customer there, so you're not feeding that thing dog food before someone builds, if you got it in time, because that's a big cost to the county taxpayers. I think the point is the city's ready and willing to work with you guys however we need to, while you build your plant, if you decide to build a plant, or to save you the cost of building a plant. But one thing we can't have happen is a new well field permitted by DEP close enough to our well field to cause our current users issues. So the closer y'all get to our well field with DEP permitting, the more issues that could be caused to the current ability to pump. And that's something to keep in mind, because every citizen in the city is also a county citizen. So we don't want to put their water source at risk.
Mr. Chairman,
Any more discussion? Yeah.
I'm still on board to go the direction we're going. I'm only one vote, but my vote is to keep the direction we're going.
Well, I don't think we have to make a decision on that tonight. I think we probably need some more information and some more negotiations before we make any decision like that. I mean, I don't know what cost plus 10 would amount to. I mean, you know.
Yeah, we'd be making a decision a little quick for the taxpayer if we don't know exactly what it's gonna cost us to do either one.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to put it out there, so, because, I mean, I want the city to know what the county's talking about doing, and we mentioned in several meetings and several individual discussions between ourselves and county management that we've got a cup for raw water. We fully intend to build a water plant and have potable water out there, and look at that as an option, because we want to make sure we're meeting the capacity needs of that industrial park, and we feel like we can do that better on our own with our own cup. I know even Mr. Dial, I heard in a previous meeting, had said there may be issues with using our cup for your water. There's issues with that. So I don't want any more roadblocks. It's like you just gave me a gas presentation, and if all that's true, you are probably perfectly aligned to provide gas to the industrial park. You know, we can do anything we need to do out there, and that's what I want to know, and that's good. So I'm going to pass along to anybody who wants to go out there. But as far as water, I want the same thing there. I want to make sure that the next time somebody comes and needs millions of gallons of capacity, we are able to meet it. And I think the county, through our own water system, our own water plant, and the continue to get more cup permits, is in a better place to do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to clarify a misconception. What the county did was drill a test well. We did not add arsenic to the water. We did not create a situation. We discovered that arsenic existed out there, and it had nothing to do with what we did. Is we notified the city when we discovered the arsenic already existed to protect the city's water system. We did nothing to jeopardize the city water system, and I object to being classified that we did something that would damage the city water system. All we did was test the groundwater. Arsenic was in the groundwater. We did not put it there.
So, but we do have
Thank you, Mr.
extenuating testing added due to that well. Is that correct? Where's Mike?
You do have more testing, but that is
Yeah.
because there's arsenic in the ground, not because of anything the county did.
But we don't have arsenic in our well. We're having to test it because you found
Because
arsenic in your well.
we found arsenic
Yeah.
in the environment. So that's why you're testing, to make sure that arsenic doesn't get to you.
Who accused us of sabotaging the well?
That was my interpretation of what was said.
It wasn't an accusal of that. It's just more work of testing that we have to do when we already didn't have arsenic.
But even if you didn't test, the arsenic would still be there.
Mr. Dial, do you have something to say this, or Mike, or either one of you?
Yeah, Chairman, I'd just like Ms. Bell to speak
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
being able to work together on this and some other situations that might put a little more clarity on what we're wanting to do or try to work together on.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wasn't getting up to excitedly talk about arsenic, so I'm gonna just blow right past that one. And a disclaimer, I have not talked directly to the county or North Florida Professional Services about this, but I did just talk to Mike Osborne up in the hallway, and I'm sorry if we got a little bit loud, but he told me about an idea that has been brought up that I actually really think has legs that we haven't considered before. So right now the city has its own water use permit that is nearing its capacity, right? And we've been doing this alternative water supply study to try and find ways to offset the impact. Like Mr. Sampson was explaining earlier, we're trying to look at maybe putting a treatment plant up north because there's fewer impacts you have to worry about, looking at a lot of options, but it's extremely challenging based on the regulatory environment. So we're having issues there. The county, because they are a brand new water use permit in the area and you have the wastewater plant with the built-in reclaimed that gives you the offsets you need, was able to get a 2.1 million gallon water use permit, right? So between the two of y'all, you have a lot of capacity. And the 2.1 gets you about half of what we think the industrial park needs. So we're, that's great progress moving forward. But the question is, where's that water going to come from? Obviously, we had issues with the test well, trying to figure out where to put a new well. The city has plenty of pumping capacity, just not enough water use permit allocation. And so the idea was come up to potentially have the county, and I'm gonna try to put this in like non-technical terms, to have the county effectively give their permit to the city, and then the city would sell their water that's already treated and therefore potable to the county, saving the county the treatment costs, and the county would become a consecutive water user. It sounds like conversations have been had with the Water Management District, and they are tentatively on board with the idea, and there's precedent with DEP for this to work on the treatment and transmission and distribution side. As an example, at Jones Edmonds, we work a lot with Kennedy Space Center. We do a lot of their water and wastewater infrastructure, and they don't have their own water treatment plant or wastewater plant. They instead purchase their water from COCO, and they are a consecutive water user. Now, the downside to that is by purchasing water from another entity, you still have to do all of your own water quality testing and meet your own water quality requirements downstream. And you may need to have an additional pumping station to have the pressures that you need in your system. However, with the 24-inch water main project that the city has already approved Jones Edmonds to design, you could, in theory, stick a single meter on that line and then keep track of all the water that the city would sell to the county. That would save the county money on the treatment and the processing of the water. It would save the city from having to go after a large expansion of their water use permit, because you would have this combination, so they wouldn't have to change their permit to meet the demands of the industrial park. And as far as I know, it's permittable through DEP. It's just a matter of getting the Water Management District on board, because as far as I know, Suwannee has not done this before, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So I just want to throw out there, in the interest of us all working together, which we've been talking a lot about tonight, saving money and making everyone's lives easier, I actually think that's a really exciting idea from both the professional and personal perspective. And so I just wanted to share that with the combined boards here to see what y'all think. But I believe this was North Florida Professional Services idea, so I don't want to take any credit for that. I just want to express support of that idea. So
Appreciate it, Ms.
Well, who's gonna be over the water then? The county won't have any say-so over the water. We're gonna give them our cup, but we're not gonna have any say-so over the water or the price of the water.
Mr. Williams, the way I have seen it work in my experience is the county would have full control over what the county bills to the county's customers, and then you would just be billed a single bill by the city. So you would have to negotiate a rate with the city based on your master meter, and then you can bill your folks accordingly, your customers accordingly. So in this case, I don't know how it would be, like where the line of demarcation would be exactly, but let's say, just for the sake of argument, y'all get the whole industrial park as your customer base, right? There would be a meter before the park. So you would be in charge of your customers in the park. You operate as a water utility. You control your water quality. And all the city does is send you a single bill for the total volume of water going your way.
Although it's our cup.
So it would be a combined water use permit. And again, I do not know of an instance of Suwannee doing this when I was a water use permit reviewer when I was there. They have very few public supply water use permits, and so I would need to talk to Suwannee, and I would need to review. I just sent a message to my senior engineer who works with Kennedy Space Center to get more details on how their consecutive use permit works. But the idea is you would still have your customers, and just you would be billed by
The only way this would work based on the way our cup is written, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, is we would have to maintain ownership of the water use permit, because those 2.1 million gallons can only be used in the industrial park.
Okay. I'm coming to this idea, having heard about it less than 10 minutes ago.
Yes.
And so conversations would need to be had with the Water Management District, because I believe it would be a first for Swanee, right? As far as I know, but I just want to say I support that as a streamlined concept that would be cost effective for everyone. It would just, I agree, you want to maintain protection of your interests in your water use permit, but it sounds like.
So right now, we really don't even know if Swanee River Water Main would allow this.
Well, Mike said he's had preemptive conversations with the person with Warren Zwonka who oversees the permitting program at Swanee, and he seems to, again, tentatively say it's doable. I just don't know what the conditions on the permit would be.
But other water management districts have done it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a common thing with DEP that one utility will sell water to another, and it's just a matter of having a single meter, and then that downstream utility is in charge of their own water quality requirements based on their number of customers.
Chairman,
So-
I want to know who authorized all of this to be done.
So basically,
Nobody.
Huh?
This is just an idea that came up 10 minutes ago, Ron. This,
No, it come up way before that.
oh, okay.
so
well,
basically,
It was talked about at
so
our-
basically,
oh,
we've
okay, well,
had a
she's just telling us it just came up, so,
No, I think this is something that, go ahead, Dave.
yes, David.
So basically, North Florida Professional Services and I met with the district. And this was something that we were looking at all the options available to the county to make sure we tried to maximize the economic benefit for the county. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, the information we got from the district was the easiest, fastest way to do this would be through a modification of the existing permit rather than working through the city. Not that you couldn't work through the city, but it would be very complicated and messy.
Well, that seems to answer the question for us.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this needs to be looked into further before we make any kind of
Yeah.
decision. Because right now, it seems like it's maybe a far-fetched idea.
Yeah, and it may work and it may not, but it's worth looking at. But I'm with y'all, we're charging ahead. We're not slowing anything down.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so one point is if you guys decide to go that way, one of the advantages would be is if we get that water use permit on the north side, now we just went from having 2 million available to having more available. So, anywhere in the Itchtuckney, we're gonna have some real issues adding. You guys already know, everybody who knows, the offsets, the deal we're going through now, trying to get our water use permit increase is the same thing you're gonna go through. So you'll have some on that sewer line, assuming that it's charged and being used, but I don't know why we wouldn't at least look into it.
From what I understand, the one caveat is that the 2.1 million is only for the industrial park, right?
That's
So it wouldn't
correct.
be allowed to be used citywide, but it would allow the city to supply the water to the industrial park without the city having to increase their own water use permit, which is the current problem we're facing with that impact offset. So you would be able to, basically you'd be able to serve the industrial park from a water use permitting perspective, and the county in theory would not need to build their own water treatment plant to provide potable water. So it kind of sounds like everybody wins as long as we can get the regulatory agencies on board. I mean, yes, it has to be fleshed out much more. Literally just sent an email to Mr. Williams to see if we can get together and talk about it and see how we can help y'all together. Because I think that not only should the city and county, but the consultants who work for you can work together too. So I just want to help, and I think it's an exciting idea that's at least worth looking at. And I do know that we have clients who do something similar, so I'd be happy to share their success stories and bring more information to whoever it would be helpful to.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much, Ms. Bill.
Absolutely.
I need some question about the sewer plant. I thought it was already out for bid.
The sewer plant is not yet out for bid. The final piece of the puzzle is the DEP permit. And so forgive me, it's been a blur of a month and a half with COVID and everything, so I can't remember if I told you all this, but we had the permit into DEP over 2 months ago, and then the permit reviewer retired and no one told us, and so his whole load is put on a single human being who's doing this permitting. And we just got the final draft permit for the wastewater plant in the middle of the month, And we worked with county staff to get that advertised in the local paper, which is a requirement to open up a public comment period. And so that has now begun. We're in the 2 weeks of public comment right now. It started on Saturday when it was advertised. And we're basically just waiting to see if there's any comment that would affect the final drawings of the plan. If there's no final comment, all we need to do is wrap up the specifications with county procurement, which we are in the middle of exchanging emails with him right now, and we need to tie a bow on the plan set. So as soon as we get all of that finalized, we'll be going out to bid in very short order here. So it's just waiting for the final regulatory pieces to fall into place.
Well, you know, we're already behind on our critical path, with the sewer path.
With regard to the permitting, we've certainly seen some delays, but we're still on target for our final completion of plant construction. And we believe that even if, you know, these delays have set us back slightly, there are ways we can work with the contractor to expedite some bits and pieces of the construction. And we believe we're on track for fully operational in August of next year, which is the date we've been saying that you can tell businesses that they can send flow to the plant and we're good to go, fully operational in August.
Well, I don't want to believe, I want to know. I want you to promise this board that we will have that plant up and operating by August of 2023.
I mean, I can't promise you we won't have another Suez Canal disaster or
Well,
anything
why-
like
why-
that,
why
but
Why using having a critical path if we're not going to stick to it?
with the items that are in my control, I can tell you we are on track for an August 2023 fully operational plant.
Is there any more discussion about the mega industrial park?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what, Ms. Bell just shared with us, same thing that Jimmy Pittman shared with us here about 3 weeks ago. It sounds like the monster in the room is DEP. So every chance you get, spread the word about DEP, we probably need to. But, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but you, me and you had discussion a month ago or so that if we do entertain this idea and it works through Swanee River Water Management and all the other entities, DEP, because, and it's kind of a twofold question, is, sounds like the DEP permit for the water plant, that could be drug out too. I mean, Greg, is there a timeline that assumed on that? I mean, I hate to even put you in that position because, again, we're saying that DEP word around here again. Well, we got wetlands at the end of culverts.
We were working on the same schedule that you've established for the wastewater plant. The potable water plant, the biggest thing is getting those test samples back, for knowing what kind of, water quality we had out there to treat. Once we have that, then the rest of it is pretty straightforward, so it's not that drug out. It's a little bit easier to permit stuff like that than it's permit stormwater basins nowadays with the water management district, so.
Well, but the point that David made to me that kind of got my thinking cap on was that if we did go that route and we saved $4 million on the, building of that plant, we all gotta remember, Ron was the only one here back then, but the board previously committed to all the infrastructure going into the mega site, so let's not lose track of that, you know, cause that's several $1 million worth of roads but I think we've done a good job, to my understanding, for these future projects and these projects we got, basically sitting on the shelf real close, they're on 90, so that's gonna save us a lot of money by going that route, but I stated what you and me had a discussion about, correct, David?
Yes.
So I just wanted the board just kind of keep that in mind, because we are on the hook for that.
Mr. Mayor, would you or any other council members want to add anything to this meeting?
I just talked, Kenny, and I said, do y'all have councilman comments? He said, yeah, but I think we've commented enough. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Well, if we had unlimited money, we wouldn't have any problems. And from the city's point of view, it's not that we want to hold back and not run utilities all over the county, but we have our customers that if we start spending millions of dollars, they're going to have to pay it. And if we ain't getting money back in, then the rate's going to be higher than some of these other towns around us that have gotten out of hand. But I think there's a way with all of us, and I agree with Toby about one thing. I think there's been a lot of miscommunication, and I think we just gotta do that. And we gotta put things to right. And I think that a lot of these problems can be solved. We just gotta get it down to the details and make them work for both sides.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
No, I got-
We have some more? Okay, go ahead.
Oh,
No, I'm happy. I'll sit here all night.
Paul, I just want to tell you that I really appreciate the interest that we have. We started meeting, once a week, once a week, when Ms. Fields was here. And sort of kind of worked on a relationship with, between the city and county. And that foundation is still going, although we might not agree on everything. But I remember something you said. I'll put a line anywhere you want to go if I got the funds to do it there.
Yes,
It's just that simple.
yes.
And, we city council, we just keep working. There's some things we gonna work together on, and there's some things that we gonna go our separate ways. But that shouldn't mean that we against one another. It's some ways that the county gonna do things their way, but things we can work together on, this board is all in.
It's been a good meeting. There's a lot of enlightenment here today. Steve, I appreciate you. I appreciate all y'all. Any more commissioner comments?
I'd just like to quickly say, I think a lot of, I can speak for self on my part, a lot of misconceptions have been cleared up in this meeting. And I've heard some things in here that I haven't heard before. And I heard some things brought up that but in my opinion, nobody know where it came from. So, if nothing else, I think, we have gained something from this meeting to clear up some misconceptions and take some serious, issues, a serious look at where we want to go as two boards together forward. And I hope that, as Mr. Ron and others have said, that we can work, whatever projects we can work on, but then we need to buckle down and work on them. I never threw any rocks at the county, and the county never threw any at me personally. So I don't know what's out there, but I'm willing to work with the county for the good of the county and the city, to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Any more comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Adjourn.